Share my slide package here. So today, as Al mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about our journey with AI. And I'm going to take some liberties in this presentation because I want you to leave here really with more questions and answers. But I also wanted to share what we've been through and some of the things that we've run into. So here we go. Here we go. Let's try again. Here we go. So this slide to me represents the future and what one day we'll be sitting down with our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever, and we'll be telling them we were there when all this began. Because I do believe the future will be so much different than it is today in the way we communicate, in our entertainment, in the way we get things done. So one day we'll look back and this will be the start of something that truly is remarkable. And I think about it in terms of many different things or events in history that have changed the way we all look and perceive the world around us. So if we go in the Wayback Machine to the year 2023, and that's when really generative AI and ChatGPT started showing up and became something that we had not heard of previously, or for those of us that weren't actively engaged in it. And so I position this as a year of learning because we all started with machine learning, and we know what machine learning is all about. We've been using machine learning for quite a while here. And so this was nothing new for us. And that's what we considered to be AI at the time. But since then, of course, a whole bunch of new terminology came along, ChatGPT, for instance, something we had not heard about. My boss asked me, did I know anything about it back in, I think it was December of 22, maybe, or somewhere along in there. And I hadn't heard anything about it, started reading about it, and then started imagining what this could be or could mean for support, just in the very simple form that it was in at the time. Of course, AI was the big terminology that you see it on the news every day, the rise of AI, things about AI. But it's been going on a long time with machine learning. And but now it's all of a sudden it's big news because of ChatGPT and the things that OpenAI did or brought to light. GPT was another term that came along, and we started learning about what did that mean? What was that all about? Transformers, another one, and that's not the movie, by the way. That's the part of the GPT. But you read about it, you learn about it. I've taken some LinkedIn courses on it. Still not sure I understand it completely. Really changed the way we think about the things that we were doing. Of course, OpenAI, NVIDIA, more terms that you've heard. Trained on the internet was a phrase that came up that nobody had heard about. What did that really mean? What did it mean to be trained on the internet? RAG model, famous for how we do search today using generative AI. Conversational, stays in context, completely unheard of in any type of AI that we'd used before, and except for the machine learning aspects and the very well-defined tool set. So that was something that was new and unusual. LLMs, again, a new abbreviation we'd never heard of. Agentic AI, to Al's point, came along a little bit later, but again, another term that I found on a website and then started doing some more investigation on to see what it was about. Now, the question is this evolutionary or is it revolutionary? And that's the question we're going to try to answer today, or at least make you think more about. And then lastly, this is the conversation Al and I have had. What will be the impact of quantum computing on this? We see how fast AI has moved in the last few years. How much faster will it go when quantum computing becomes a thing? And so I'm sitting here thinking, will AI be a transistor or a terminator? And so what that means, we're going to learn in just a minute. But first, let's go to a commercial break on quantum computing. And I don't know that how many of you are familiar with it, and I'm really not, other than just a little bit of research so I can understand basically what they're talking about. But it's really talking about a supercomputer that just far goes beyond what computers can do today, or even supercomputers can do today. As you can see, that first statement is a pretty strong statement. Ultra powerful machines that could perform calculations in very short order that even supercomputers today would take millions of years, perhaps, or potentially. Quantum supremacy is another thing I learned. Happens when the quantum computer can complete a mathematical calculation that is demonstrably beyond the reach of even the most powerful supercomputer. That actually happened in 2019, quietly in the background, October 23rd. And what that was Google, of course, using a quantum computer they call Sycamore. It solved a problem in 200 seconds that would take the world's fastest supercomputer 10,000 years to solve. And some say quantum computing becomes mainstream 2026, next year. So if you think about the impact of that for a minute and what that could really mean, think about OpenAI and how it works. It takes months and months and months to regenerate a new model. What if new models came out every day or every few minutes even? how far can it go? And I know that there's a lot of news about now talking, has it learned everything it can learn on the internet? There's not enough content or new content for it to get better, stronger, whatever. But I believe we've only cracked the surface or touched the surface of what it could be from an application perspective. Even if you think about what it's learned or what it can do, but from applications that we're using it, we've only scratched the surface. We're not even close to where it can be. So what is quantum computer going to do for us in that realm? All right, back to our normal regular programming, evolution of AI, transistor or terminator. So I mentioned what my thinking was, is it a transistor? And if you think about the transistor was, and I'll build this out, long time ago, the transistor changed the way electronics work. It replaced the tubes effectively and really revolutionized the electronics industry. We have flat screens because of transistors. We have smartphones because of it. Every device you can imagine today operates on transistors, and even your big IC components that live in these devices are made up of millions and billions of transistors. And this is all because of this one simple breakthrough that happened actually in 1947, in December of 1947. So it's been ongoing for a long time, but it really didn't come into mainstream until much later. Or we could be talking about the Terminator. Now, what does the Terminator do? We all know the Terminator movie, and what the Terminator did, came back in time to try to change the future. So I would argue that even today, what OpenAI and ChatGPT and these other companies have done have already changed the future in the way we approach things. The way we provide support will change dramatically in the next few years. And we're reimagining how we do support from the ground up. Traditional methodologies are no longer going to work for the customer. They're going to want new things. They're going to want innovation continuously. I think, what was it, Steve Jobs said, or I forget who it was, it said, today's wonderful innovation is tomorrow's table stakes, because we have to move so very quickly. So that's something to think about. But does it get out of control? Does it cause more harm than good? It's already taken jobs away from people and will continue to do so. But does that mean people go without jobs forever? Certainly not. And there's upskilling, retraining, doing different things, retirement. There's many different arenas for folks to go. But it will change the way, not to mention the jobs it will create by having different type of jobs like prompt engineering. That wasn't a thing until recently. So what does that mean? How does that work? What do people do? How do they learn to do that? Does that become a college curriculum perhaps? There was a day a long time ago you couldn't take calculators to school with you, and now it's mandatory you have a laptop. So the rapid change, maybe OpenAI or ChatGPT becomes your new laptop of the future that you take with you. And it's part of who you are and how you behave and how you learn. So it's going to drastically change the way things are done throughout. All right, so where did our journey start? So we started at the beginning. We had existing vendors and relationships, so we wanted to leverage those and see what we could do to what their new innovations look like and how they were leveraging ChatGPT or OpenAI or LLMs. And so that was the only place we could start, because we didn't have any money planned for this. This came kind of out of nowhere, so we had no real funding there in our reserves. So we looked at existing vendors and relationships and tried to build on those. Of course, generative answering and search was really the first big thing that a lot of people talked about. And I guess when you start thinking about using it, that's one of the things that pops into mind. You think about search in general. And so this made a lot of sense. If it could provide the answer and not just links, how revolutionary would that be? But of course, with that comes new hurdles. I mean, all the functions in the organization or company were learning the same rate we were learning. We had contracts we had to update to use the new generative AI components or the new AI. We had master service agreements we need to rewrite to include it and to talk about how to privacy and all these other things. Purchase recs for AI features had to be written. We had to figure out how to do these things and include it and to ensure privacy and security. We had to go through security reviews, legal reviews, privacy reviews, and work with our IT organizations. They were trying to figure this stuff out as well. So it took a very long time initially to get moving on this and get a lot of these things in place. So then they were asked, we started doing POCs. We were asked to pay for POCs, but we didn't have any funding because this was, again, something that caught us off guard. So once we started going out and getting funding and putting something together, then we had free POCs. We couldn't spend it. Companies that time lapsed in there, and now companies were eager to get us using their new software, new technology. So we had money and we couldn't spend it because of free POCs. Of course, new vendors came out of the woodwork. Anything you can imagine, people were calling me about and wanting to me look at this product, that product, this software, whatever. More vendors than we had previously talked to by stretch of imagination. New products everywhere. Agentic AI, to Al's point, something we never didn't exist before. All of a sudden, that was a thing. So new products came out. More reviews. One of the things that my team and I did with machine learning was look at various different bots that came along to see if we could improve our chat experience. And it was one bot about every 2 to 3 months, maybe. Now we're getting requests weekly to go look at new products and new vendors and see what we can do and review their products. And thank goodness we had a good model in place to handle some of that on a more routine basis. Then new responsibilities. All of a sudden now I'm responsible for AI. When AI was really on a portion of the team previously, now it was all of a sudden my full-time responsibility. And I think that affected a lot of people the same way. And lastly, more training. I've been going to LinkedIn Learning and other sources trying to soak in as much of it as I can. Unfortunately, a lot of it I can understand, a lot of it I can't, because I'm trying to learn stuff that is way beyond me. But again, you got to dive off the deep end and start learning more about it. So early days, I say ready, fire, aim, because that's pretty much how it was. We were told to go do AI. We didn't really know what that meant, but we were going to go do AI. So everybody took off at the same time, kind of like a shotgun approach at a golf tournament. You got a number of groups at each hole, and everybody hits the ball at the same time. Off we go, full steam ahead. So that creates some churn and some issues. So we had a solution looking for a problem effectively. What can it do for us? And we made a long list of things that we thought it could do. We didn't know for sure, but a lot of it was just, well, what if? Or here's my biggest problem. Let's see if it can solve that. But we didn't have the expertise to even know what it could do or couldn't do at that point in time. So where are the pain points? Was another way to approach it. And what I asked the support center to do was put together a value stream mapping of their processes to start really understanding where the cases are flowing, where they're spending a lot of their non-value added time, where are their pain points that they're running into day in and day out, and not just try to remember the last thing that bit them, but holistically across our process, where are those pain points? How do we measure it? And this sounds simple enough, but it really isn't. And I'll give you an example. With search, one of the things about search that has been a long-standing measure is click-through rate. Because obviously you want to show a bunch of links, you want people to click on them. You want to demonstrate that you are indeed finding what they're looking for. In the world of generative answering, click-through rate, you want to be as low as possible. In the old world search, you want it to be as high as possible. Because generative answering, you're not providing links until later on, you're providing the answer. You want people to interact with the answer and be successful and not have to click on one of the links that are below it. So you got to rethink the way you're measuring and what you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes you get asked the question, what are you really trying to do with this tool? And you have to step back from that and think about it. What am I really trying to do with this tool? Am I trying to save time? Am I trying to save costs? Am I trying to, is it for CSAT? Is it for ESAT? What am I really trying to go after? And then, of course, you're doing what? So am I. And that came about because we all went at the same time. And we had various people coming up with solutions to the same problem. Or 3 or 4 teams working on the same issue, trying to find a solution for it. So it's just a matter of figuring out what do we need to do from there? Where do we need to go from there? So the idea was, let's get organized. Let's mature our approach a little bit. And so we really started pulling people together and focusing on 2 aspects. How do we help the customer? How do we help the team solve the customer issues faster? Split it out to CX and EX. And from there, we built our foundation on our search tools. On the support website, we put our search there, generative search there. Also in our virtual assistant on the site. We also included it in our internal tools that the engineers use to solve cases. And we have a case recommendation panel that we just turned up here not too long ago, where when someone is trying to open a case on the website, off to the side of that, we'll have generative answering, supplying answers or providing answers based on what they enter. So basically, anywhere we use search, we tried to use this as our standard, our platform, our initial foray into the new world of AI. So the faster you solve issues, of course, then that knowledge becomes known knowledge, and we get it off into our KBs via KCS very quickly, make it available to our customers throughout. So we established also an AI council, which I was asked to lead up just because we had some AI going on in our team. And the idea there was really to corral all the different teams together and all the different people working on AI, figure out what we were doing, coordinate efforts, align efforts along CX and EX, and really just get a good inventory of what was going on, because nobody really knew. Everybody was just going off and doing stuff. So we did that, got that off the ground and started. And then the next thing we looked at was deep dive analytics. And basically, our web analytics at the time only looked at web analytics. We did not have a good view of the customer journey from the time they sign the contract to the time that they are calling in a problem and completing the problem and solving the problem. We did not have that journey end to end. We only had their web clicks. And in this new world, that is not good enough. It's just not good enough to not be able to understand their cases, not being able to understand, did the answer that we provided, did it solve their problem? Or did they go open a case on the exact same issue? And in the world we have today, we couldn't tell. In this new world, we're going with another tool that can bring in all the different channels that customers use, whether it's chat or phone calls or opening cases directly or going to the different properties, bring all that together, analyze it together along with our Adobe Analytics, along with our tool we use called Glassbox to bring in more value or more visibility to what the customer is actually doing. From there, do some deep dive analytics using generative AI. That's what it's really good at, is answering those big questions. And so we point at that data, and then we're going to try to extract information from that data to really tell us where the customer is being successful in their journey or where they're failing. More importantly, where are they failing and how can we fix that journey to prevent them from failing? But that was the initial thought, and that's how we're going to go forward with it. But I'm learning more and more, and this is hot off the presses, customers are now not visiting websites as much. And the reason they're not is because of generative AI out on Google or other search engines. They're getting their answers there. Instead of getting links and coming to the site, they're getting their answers there. So it's reduced our traffic. So now we have to rethink how we're doing this. And instead of making the data with SEO, we got to think about AIEO, I think it's called. So it's our data is ready for Google to present it in a format and in a generative answer that the customers can understand. So we really got to we got a little turn in the road here, a little curve that we didn't expect. How do we still help the customer, even though through Google and not necessarily through our own website? And then second piece of that is how do we push the goodness of our support properties into the product itself more so than we already have to provide support to the customer where they are, when they're interacting with our products. So that's another big drive we're looking at as well. So next, find the pain points. We talked a little bit about this already with value stream mapping, really to understand where the case flow happens, where the majority of cases go through, where can we relieve some of the pressure. And then targeted solutions. One size does not fit all. You can't go buy one solution and it's going to do everything for you. Just simply does not work that way. So Agentic AI was the next biggie that Al talked a little bit about. And this one I found was very interesting because when we were thinking about generative, we were thinking about really information sharing and helping customers solve issues that way, and then also helping our internal folks solve issues. We weren't thinking about executing things for them or executing things for our internal TSEs. And that's when we talk about Agentic a little bit. The idea with Agentic is really take away some of the administrative type work and also solve some of the administrative cases that come in. So today the TSEs go through the technical support engineers. While they're solving cases, they're also doing things like creating KBs, using SPS, structured problem solving, creating those templates. They're putting in case updates. They're filling out handover templates when one case moves from one person to another. But a lot of administrative work that goes with it. They're documenting their phone calls, things of that nature that if we can use some way with the Agentic AI to execute a lot of those tasks for them. So in other words, let's say when the case is open, per KCS, you need to open a KB simultaneously. And then you complete the KB as you're completing the case. So if you don't need the KB, you throw it away. If you need it, then you publish it. Why can't we have Agentic do that for us? Go ahead and open the KB. And as we're working the case, it's populating the KB accordingly. We have something called TRO, which is an initial email that goes out to our customers when the case comes in to say, hi, I'm your engineer. Here's your case number. Here's my phone number. Here's my manager's phone number. Here are my working hours. We reviewed your data. We need this data. We need that data, or it may be this issue. Can you try this? So there's an initial email that goes out. What can we do with Agentic to get that email sent out very quickly when that case is open? By having it know who the engineer is that's getting the case, by having it review the data that's been collected, and do we need more based on collection, framing, and templates? So those kind of things. Can it also fill in case notes? From a conversation on the phone call? Can it summarize that, put it in the case? We're already using it to summarize cases. That was one of the earlier use cases that one of the engineers came up with, so that when you're doing a handover, you run this tool and it summarizes the case and prepares the handover for the engineer. They plop it in the template and get it moved along. Also to get people up to speed on it, like managers and whoever. So there's a lot of things there that we believe Agentic can do for us and really simplify our processes. And if you think about in your own situations, if your support center, if their engineers are spending 20 to 30% of their time doing administrative type work, and you can take away a lot of that work for them, number one, they get to do the things they really enjoy, and that's work on the issue itself. And number two, you get instant capacity in your support centers. It's free head count right there to allow you to grow without having to go hire a bunch more people. There's more cost avoidance than it is cost reduction. So something to think about as well in the terms of how you phrase a lot of the work that we're doing. The idea is not to replace a human, but it's to supplement them so they can do more, and we can avoid hiring a bunch of people every time the company grows or expands a bit. So something else to think about. So I believe the future holds promise. And what I mean by that is I think there's so many things out there that we really haven't thought about yet. Let's take the first one, processes that train the user. So let's think about that and peel that apart a little bit. If you think about the agentic diagram we just looked at with the domain agent, was that first agent. That's a bot that you train in the process. So it can execute things on behalf of the engineer. Imagine pulling somebody off the street that has the technical know-how, and you sit them down with this bot, and this bot walks them through solving a case, walks them through your processes. Because if you're anything like us, I think you can imagine that the technology is difficult, but a lot of times the process is even worse to learn, or harder to learn, or it takes more time to learn. Many times we have special processes for special customers or groups of customers. And the engineer has to remember that for a certain customer on a certain day of the week that has a certain issue, I can only talk about these certain things, or I can only provide this type of information. Or if it's a warranty customer, I can send the email tomorrow. I don't have to send it today. Things like that. So there's all kinds of things that go into play here for the customers. What they're entitled to from their entitlements, what their special lists that they're on, and how we treat them. So imagine not having to learn that the bot tells you what you need to do, or also does things for you, so you don't have to do it at all. So you just need to learn the technology. The ramp time and the onboarding time could be dramatically reduced. People can get up to speed much quicker in your support center or in any job as far as that goes. That goes back to the second bullet, instantly productive. Hiring people and not having to plan months and weeks of training, but they're instantly productive day one because the process trains them or the tool trains them. This is an interesting one because we own the NetApp support site, and I'm trying to visualize this. About three years ago, we started down the path of building what we call a customer success portal, and it was based on Red Hat. So hats off to Red Hat, but I actually judged that site that year, and I saw something different that I hadn't seen before, and we wanted to replicate it because I thought it was a brilliant idea, and that was a portal that really goes after the things that customers use on a day in, day out basis and have everything right there. So it's more than just support. It was about customer success. So we were trying to emulate that, and we built some wireframes up. Couldn't quite get the funding off the ground, and we're struggling with it a little bit and really trying to figure out how we're going to do it. And along comes AI and started making us think about this differently. Today, we're trying to put AI on top of our existing website. What if you built a website starting with AI and not building it on the traditional website and then trying to put AI on top of it? What if you had a website that had access to customer information and IB information and knew where the customer was in their journey? So when they logged on to your website, it configured itself in a way that met the customer where they were in their journey. That, for instance, would be, let's say we had information that we knew they just bought a specific device. They log on within, 24 hours of buying that device, perhaps, or receiving it. And we say, we noticed you just purchased this device. You're probably in the configuration mode. Here's some documentation you need to configure it, or just press here, we'll configure it for you. Or here's some documentation to install it, if you need to install it. Once it's configured, we notice that you want to run a certain workload on it. We recommend that you upgrade to this new release because this new release is more capable of running the workload that you're trying to run. Better performance, fewer errors. All kinds of ways of meeting that customer where they are in their journey and really anticipating their needs versus reacting to the customers working with you. The customer today, of course, comes to our websites and has to click buttons or push things or whatever for us to give it information because we don't know what they want. What if we do know what they want? How would that change the way your website responds to your customer? And now that I've said all that and convinced you to go out and do these things, what if your customer doesn't come to your websites because they want in-product support? So you really have to think about how your customers leverage your digital properties, What do they really want? Can you provide in-product support? Is that even a thing in your business? Maybe it's not. In ours, we're fortunate that we can, and we have been for the last couple, 3 years via an API program that my team also runs. So I think there's all kinds of opportunities here to do things different and really meet the customer where they are versus waiting for them to engage us and then answering the question or providing them the information they're looking for. So you got to think of it from the customer's perspective. What do you want when you go to a website? Do you want to poke around to find stuff? Or do you want it to greet you, know who you are, know what you just bought, know why you're there, and provide you the stuff you need right then and there on the front page, regardless of whether it's just support. Maybe something marketing related, like we recognize you just bought this product. Did you know it can do A, B, C, and D? Or we noticed that you're using A, B, and C. Do you know it can also do D? So you're not trying to sell them anything. You're trying to make them aware of what they've already bought and extract the value from the products they've already bought. And I think that's really key and critical in engaging the customer and building that relationship. I think we've learned over the years that the relationship that occurs with our customers is far more important than many of the other things that we do. And they leverage that relationship, they depend on that relationship, and that's how business grows, is based on relationships. It's not based on a whiz-bang website. This another one that I've thought about is today cases come in and they go through the typical tiered structure, tier 1, tier 2. If tier 1 can't fix it, it goes to tier 2, etc. What if when the case came in, AI could look at it and understand the complexity of the case and then find the right person with the right skill set and also the right level of skill and assign it to that person? Imagine that person being the one that fixes the case every time. No more case handovers. No more bouncing the case around to find the right person. No more tiers. No more level 1, level 2. Not saying remove the people in level 1. I'm saying you don't need tiers if your cases always are assigned to the person that's going to solve the case, regardless of their level of understanding, regardless of their seniority, regardless of their knowledge. Does it meet what the case needs to be solved? One way of doing this is looking at your historical view of your older cases. Find the case in the database that looks just like the one that came in. Who solved it? Can that person solve this case? Do they have the bandwidth, the right language, in the right time zone, et cetera, et cetera? But leverage your data sets. I mean, that's the power of AI. You can leverage these huge data sets and come up with better answers, better solutions, better way of managing your internal casework. Unlocking new revenue. I mean, there's all kinds of features and services I think we all can imagine that we could provide to our customers now that we have the ability to understand more about the customer, have that 360 view, understand what their install base looks like, understand where they are in their journey. What services could we offer? What services can we provide? They just bought a box. They log on. Oh, we see you bought a box. We haven't received a notification that you've installed it. Do you need installation services? Press here. We noticed that you've installed your box and it's configured. Do you need help with anything? Press here. And then charge them for it. Or offer other type of incentives to get them to purchase services, or provide them definitely more insights about health of the box, where the box is going, complete telemetry. We do a lot of that today already. Systems that heal themselves, recommend updates to the customers. This one, it was funny. The more I thought about this one, the more I thought about how wrong this statement could be. Traditionally, we think about systems healing themselves. We think about patching, because I think that's the way a lot of us handle bugs in a system. But we know generative AI, what can it do? It can write its own code. What if your product is out there working, sees an error, instead of reporting the error, it writes its own code to fix the error, tests it, and then implements it on the spot. And if it's successful, sends that information back to headquarters to then formulate a formal patch, perhaps, send it out to all the other boxes, and the other boxes automatically update. No downtime required. Now you have a truly self-healing, not only box, but a self-healing network of boxes. So any box that has the problem will no longer have the problem. It's just been fixed by the one box that ran into it first. So that's how extreme we can get. In the near term, it can do simple things like, here's my problem. It sends in an email, or to us, it sends a message in. We get the message. We have the patch available. We can send the patch out, and then the customer can apply it. We should be able at some point to automatically apply, to even automatically build a patch on the spot at the customer site without having to do these other things. So the promise there is huge if you think about it. No more patching, no more manual intervention. Customers get updates immediately upon finding the problem in the field. And lastly, at the end game, the customers sooner or later is going to come up with AI to report their problems. And what if their AI is reporting it, our AI is solving it. and remove the human from the loop, except on the back end where perhaps new information is being added, new issues are being found and fixed, things of that nature that can feed back into the AI really on both sides. And this could really revolutionize the way support works, not only from a provider standpoint, but from someone who goes looking for support occasionally as well. So what have we learned? Generative and agentic AI are being designed in our world to fix or to assist our humans, to assist our engineers, to support our customers, to really go after, we'll call it ordinary or repetitive type work, and let the engineers and the people aspect of it focus on the value added work. For instance, known issues. AI should be able to intercept those cases and fix them all. New issues. Humans need to do some homework, do some research, figure it out with the assistance of AI, come up with the new solutions, make them available through KCS with the assistance of AI, and now AI can solve them from that day forward automatically. And then also too, training, other endeavors, growing your career, all these other things that the humans can do while the AI is fixing the routine and regular problems. The easier it is to talk to digital support, the stickier the product becomes. Or my new word, consumability. I'm not even sure that's a word, but if you think about if our support sites or our success portals become very engaging and the customer is comfortable there, I call it the Starbucks experience. They like to go there and hang out. They learn a lot about the products. They learn a lot about support. They solve their issues, or even using support in the product. They can learn a lot and grow. And what if it becomes, or with our APIs that we've rolled out as well, the customer can actually call our APIs directly from macros or any kind of tools they wish to write, or partners can really leverage this because they manage multiple customers. So they could write in their own custom tools macros to call our APIs or software to call our APIs. If they can do that, and they've invested a lot of time and energy in support and engaging with support and tying very closely with the things that we offer, it's harder to just put down NetApp and walk away and go start with a competitor, because there is that relationship, if you will, that engagement, that amount of effort and work. So let's make support sticky. Let's make them something that customers enjoy using and can leverage and find value in it, and not just see it as a burden or something that they must do. And this goes back to finding the customer where they are in their sales journey, and we proactively engage them. And I think that's going to be huge going forward. We let them know about problems before they happen. We fix problems before they happen. We do a lot of that today with our hardware. We're able to get the hardware part out there, get it installed before the customer even knows they have a problem. We can do that in software as well. What does that look like? To engage the customer, to make sure they don't have problems because we've told them about it, we've made them aware, we've fixed it for them. In our little model where we're self-healing, self-fixing, we provide a report at the end of the week. Let's say, for instance, these are all the issues we found and fixed this week. And hopefully this solves our issues going forward. And lastly, AI is not just a tool. When we first started playing with it, we thought, it's kind of a cool tool, kind of neat, and it does all kind of things. And the more we've looked at it, though, especially on the agentic front, it's really becoming the way we think about doing business, more of an operating model. Not just here's another tool we're going to use when we need it. We're really thinking about how does this really underlie everything we do in support, and therefore revolutionize support, and really change the way support works in the future. I think and that's why at TSIA, I think someone was talking about when I logged on, TSIA made a big deal. I was out there a few weeks ago, and they said this is not the end of support. This is the era of support. That's a pretty powerful statement. Support, I've been in support forever, and as long as I've been in, it's always been seen as a necessary evil to some degree. But now with AI and some of the things that they're doing, we can really take it up a notch. And something that we've done here the last few years is treat support like a product. I think that we fail. Sometimes we don't do that in different companies, and we miss the mark when we're not doing that. Support is a product. That's why people buy support contracts and warranties and entitlements, right? They pay for that stuff. It's a product. We don't see it as a physical hands-on product with a SKU number, but it is a product. The product that we provide, and if we treat it that way and think about how do we improve that product, make it the very best it can be. That's what we're talking about here with this change in how we view it. It's the era of support. This can take support to new places that people never dreamed of, and that goes back to the proactive engagement, self-healing, working with the customer directly. All these kind of things that we we do today, but we do it in a very mechanical and manual way. How do we expedite that? How do we really leverage it without seeing it as a threat? This is not a threat. This is not something you go buy a new tool and lay off half your staff. You don't do that. You can't do that. You can't be successful doing that. It's really got to enable your staff and improve the support that the customers are receiving. And if you think about it from a cost avoidance standpoint, not a cost saving standpoint, it really is about, you want your company to grow and you want to do everything you can to help them grow. And companies grow, but if they grow and hire people, the same number of people they have to grow, then they're not getting anywhere. A big company with lots of people doesn't make the same money as a big company with a few people. So that's the way I think about it is when we go expand our sales, expand our capabilities, expand our IB, I shouldn't have to go hire employees to do that. I should be able to leverage AI, avoid some of those costs, continue to increase our margins, and still provide better or as good as service, if not better, based on utilizing these new tool sets. So is AI a transistor or terminator? If you think about the last few years, and I never will forget what was said to me in the first year, my marketing, a buddy of mine in marketing said, AI is the worst today it's ever going to be. And you think about it, and even back then it was good. And now it's still better and continues to get better. But if we think about today is the worst it's ever going to be, can you imagine what that's going to look like in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years? And with quantum computing, let's say it does hit mainstream next year. What is that going to do to accelerate the use cases for AI, to accelerate the regeneration of new models? And, maybe we're not out of content. If AI is creating more and more content every day, we'll never run out of new content to feed back into itself. So I think there are all kinds of use cases out there, and the future is unknown right now. I think it's up in the air. But at the end of the day, what will it become? What will it become to support, to our products, and I'll tell you a quick story, even our music. AI generating music now with lyrics and voices and instruments. I was listening to some new music that I heard and didn't know it was a singer. The singer was actually AI. It wasn't a person. And it was actually really good. And the music industry sees this as a major threat. This particular creator that is building this, he's cranked out like 5 albums in the last month. And so that's a huge collection of songs that a person cannot do something that quick. And these albums are out there on iTunes and Spotify and other places. And he's selling it and doing really well. And so it just goes to show how fast this stuff moves and what you can do if you leverage the tool set. And it's all for good, right? Now, the music industry hates it because it's taking away some of their revenue. But then you look at it, and I had my question in my staff meeting, the warm-up question or whatever, was saying, is this wrong? Is this bad to do this? And the consensus was, actually, this is just a different art form. It's not trying to replace the singer or the music. It doesn't have the same soul, if you will, because the person is not actually singing it. But you can't really tell that unless you listen very, very closely. It's just a different art form. So what does that mean? Should you like it? Should you not like it? Because I didn't know it was AI when I first started listening to it. But in reality, I like it. And yes, I'm appreciating it as a different art form. So what will AI become? You have to decide that. Because technology is neither inherently good nor evil until it's used. That was Gerd Leonard. He's a futurist. Heard him back in 2018. He wrote a book called, I think it was Machine versus Man. Talks about AI and talks about how don't train your children to do routine jobs because it will be replaced. They will be replaced. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But bottom line is the future's up to us and how we use it, how we leverage it in support and make support the very best it can be and really help our companies be successful with support instead of being seen as a necessary evil in the background. All right. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Hey, James, you did a great job. I think you really help people to have a better perspective. And I've been watching. No questions have come in yet, but I think they will, because your presentation, to me at least, raises a lot of questions. You're really asking about where this thing is going. And it's hard to imagine, but these are the questions we have to ask ourselves. I particularly liked your comment about what if we have a website that's entirely built by AI with AI, rather than just added on top. So I think it's a lot of food for thought. Let's see what gives it let's give it a couple minutes and see if anything comes in.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you like. And just make note that you were in the presentation, had some questions. Happy to chat or email.
I don't know if you can see the Q&A, but there is a couple questions in there. One from Mark and one from Dave.
Okay.
Mark.
I'll say, Paul, I can't get to the Q&A, even though I'm on the presenter thing. I was going to try to see what was going on there, so it might.
Interesting.
I see them. I can see them now.
Oh, you can see
So
them?
the first question says, how does all this impact your thinking about KCS? So Dave, that's a great question. And the answer, in my opinion, is KCS remains the foundation for all of this. If you do not have good content, your AI is not going to work. It's just simple, just that simple. And the content itself, making your data AI ready is something we haven't done and still need to do. And so that's a big thing for us as well. But the KCS is really your foundation. That's where that makes your search work. That makes all these answers work. So continue driving KCS as hard as you can. I think it's absolutely critical. Do you build your own KB bot, or is there a tool out there already? So we're using our vendor that has our there's really two parts to this question, I guess. The vendor where we have our KB website or KB Foundation has just provided generative answering in their tool itself. So that is being offered on our KB site today. We turned it on Monday for internal users. It will go live to customers and partners in January. On our search site, we had our search vendor. We use their search engine where we leverage our KBs. And the way they use it is that the KBs that are found, or the knowledge that's found, is sent to their generative engine to generate an answer for us. So that's, again, a paid-for tool. Our internal virtual assistant is also provided by a vendor, and we use our same search that we use on support site tied into that tool to provide a better experience for our customers, a more consistent experience, and then we can cover all products very easily. The early days of that tool was very much machine learning, which turned into a lot of human training, and that was very time intensive. We couldn't cover all the products, and we couldn't react very quickly. Next one. Hi, all, excited to be here. Do we have access to yesterday's and today's recording? That's from Daniel. I think, Al, you'll have to take that one. I think somebody maybe have already addressed it. Yes.
I already answered that
Thank
one.
You, Paul.
And maybe, since it sounds like John or maybe some other people can't see the Q&A, if people have questions, just put them in the chat. That way everybody can see it.
I can't see it either, Paul. I don't know why. I saw it yesterday, but I'm not seeing any of the chat questions.
Yeah, these are put in the Q&A. I don't know why they have separate buckets, but they just easier if everybody just hits the chat and put your question in there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any in either Q&A or chat.
Oh, you don't see chat?
Well, I can open the window, but I don't see any messages in there.
Here, I'm gonna put in the Q. I'm gonna put in one of the questions. Just let me know if you see that.
Nope.
He already
here we
answered.
go. Yeah, I see it. How does?
So he already answered that one, but I think it's best just put questions in the chat. That way everybody can see it.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I hope everyone found that informative. And like I said, the intent was to make you ask questions about where you're going, where you're headed, and how to leverage AI more effectively. I think it's wide open. It's a lot that can be done out there, and get started early. Because the other thing TSIA said was that the incumbents like us that are already in the business and have been there for a while, we will be, and the quote they used was, nuked by these newcomers that are starting their businesses with AI. So we got to get moving to stay relevant and stay in the game. And definitely, I do believe this is the era of support. There's so many things that we're talking about internally that we can do with this that really will change the customer experience.
So James, I want to engage you a little bit before you go away. NetApp's been doing some form of AI for probably a decade, right?
Yes, sir, with machine learning, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I mean, there are, a fair number of companies that certainly not everybody, but a fair number of companies that have been doing this for a long time. Oracle comes to mind, Red Hat, the usual suspects, I guess. But the pace of change has really gone up dramatically, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. The machine learning that we use has been almost 10 years ago. And in that length of time, we looked at a lot of different vendors that were offering basically the same thing that we had. The only difference was how you trained the model was different. And so they came out with new UIs to train the model, new ways of doing it, could make it easier, harder, whatever. But there was really nothing innovative from what we looked at. But then all of a sudden, this came out of the blue, and it was like, holy smoke, what is this? I mean, completely innovative to what we were using, and have some of those team members here on the call with me. They were thrilled to see it, and just their minds got to moving very quickly. What can we do? How can we use this? How is it, can impact our customers? And so we were fortunate enough to get it out there very, very quickly and have a lot of some experience on it. We're still learning and growing, of course, but this is very different than anything that we've looked at historically, and that's the reason we jumped on as quick as we could.
Yeah, back when it was just learning management, it seemed to me that generating a support application took anywhere from many months, but more likely several years. Is that right?
It took a while, and when you stood something up, it took a while to fix it and get it working properly. It was always stood up with best intentions, but didn't always work out that way, so it took some time. With generative AI, a lot of prep work went into getting it ready, but when we cut it loose, it worked. I mean, day one, it was giving us better answers than we were providing before. I mean, it was the same search results, but the way it was presenting it, the answers were solid. We did not see hallucinations. We did not see any craziness in it. It worked. And it's just been impressive ever since. And again, every change that the company makes that we're working with and every improvement they make, it's going to be very beneficial for us, and we'll be able to take it, update our stuff pretty easily and pretty quickly. It's making a difference for us, and even our customers have said so. We send out a quarterly survey to our customers, and every year since I've worked here, the customers have always had a negative comment about search. And one quarter after we rolled out generative AI, we had no bad comments on search. We actually had some that were positive. Because you got to remember, when it comes to search, everybody's comparing us to Google. So every company out there is being compared to Google. Google sets the benchmark, and if you're not Google-like, then you're crap, right? You're garbage. And now finally we came out with this, and they stopped saying that I use Google. We know they do. We know a lot of customers still do, and that's the way they accomplish things. But this has really made a difference for us.
I think you have another question in chat.
Yeah, in regards to adoption, how do you encourage your TSCs to leverage AI and ensure them that this is indeed fact that error support and AI is not coming for the job? I don't know, but if somebody could tell me, that'd be great. No, it's in working with the TSCs and enabling the TSCs, we've just started going down that path. And the AI Council was a big step forward in that regard, because a lot of the folks on that call are TSCs. TSCs, and we call our EEs, our escalation engineers. And we've really encouraged the ground up or bottoms up from ideas. A lot of the TSCs have called me personally to give me ideas about what they want to do and things that could change and how things could work differently. And so we're really trying to engage them at that level to make them part of the solution, and not just simply say, here's a new tool, and here's your pink slip simultaneously, because it is important. We need the knowledge. You can't throw the knowledge out of your business and be successful. Somebody's got to work on this stuff, own it, operate it, continue to work with our customers. Our customers are not at the place yet where all they want to do is talk to a bot. They still want to talk to people. We need people out there for a long time to come. A lot of our customers call up and say, I don't want to talk to a machine, and I'm paying X number of dollars for my support entitlements. You're going to do the work for me. And that's the way it works. And people get on the phone, they do the work for them. So I think it's going to be a long time before our customers really get to a place where they'll accept bots for everything. I think that's going to take a very long time to happen. And through, just as the new jobs we're creating, I was on a call this morning about writing job recs or job descriptions for like 5 or 6 different new jobs we're creating as a result of this that we haven't had in the support center before. So there's going to be opportunity to do things different, to learn things differently, and but to still do what you love to do, and that's the technical end of it, and work closely with the customers.
From conversations I've had, there can be a credibility issue. In other words, another way to put it is some people don't trust AI to give them answers.
Yeah, that is indeed true, and we saw that a lot with our machine learning, with our virtual agent. We saw customers would we'd give them the answer, give them the KB, and they would immediately open a case, and the TSC would give them the exact same KB, and they would close the case and go away and be happy. So they just needed that person to say, yes, this is the right one. So that is that trust factor. But with generative AI, the way it's come on so quickly, think about your own behavior today. When you used to use Google and used to click on links and read and go find information, and when AI first came out and you still clicked on those links, do you do that today? Do you truly click on links today, or do you take the answer that Google provides and go away? And I would suggest that if you know anything about the topic and the answer sounds remotely right or correct, or you're verifying information or knowledge that you once had, you won't click on the link. If it's a total brand new topic and you have zero information about or zero knowledge, I think you will click the link, because I think you want to learn more than just the answer to the question that you asked. So I think there's going to be two camps. And then, of course, there's the folks like you and me, Al, that have been around a long time, and we're like the late adopters on any of these curves. So we want to go click some links, and we want to poke around and see what's going on. So I think it just really depends on where you are. I mean, it's the typical technology adoption curve. You got the early adopters, the innovators, then it goes up, and you got the middle adopters, then the late adopters, then the laggards, right? So some of it's going to fall in all those ranges. But as fast as stuff's moving, you better be on the early adopter or the innovator side, or you're going to get left behind.
I totally agree, and that's really why this day is dedicated a bit more to agentic AI, although generational AI is still very good and being used for more and more things all the time. But I don't want our members to fall behind. I mean, this is a big wave. This is not the same kind of changes we have seen incrementally, in the past decade. It's a whole new thing, and it is moving at such a high velocity that it will be very easy to fall behind very quickly. So I really wanted to present this, and all of you presenters today are very articulate about it. You all know a lot about it, just to give our members and friends some help to see what should we climb onto here, and why shouldn't we wait? The other side of the skeptics is that you have people not even going to Google, but using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to get their answer directly from the AI.
Exactly. So there's also a question here: what new roles are you seeing as required? So Matt, just to answer your question real quick, the roles around data governance, making AI data ready, the content, of course, is not where it needs to be. How do you structure your content appropriately? There are maintenance positions for maintaining these new tools or creating new workflows, especially in Agentic, because Agentic, it's all natural language programming. There is no coding involved. So you can set up teams that can look after our processes and then create new Agentic workflows to handle those processes or work within it. We're looking at process roles to change our processes, because now that we have the power to do different things, we're starting to take a hard look at our processes. A lot of those, and it's a funny story real quick, on the TRO, the initial email that goes out, when I suggested that we automate it, the feedback I got was, we can't do that. And I said, why? He said, well, we were told a long time ago that you can't automate this email. And I said, yeah, I know. I told you that when I came up with that process 15 years ago. I'm telling you now we can, simply because the reason we couldn't do it then is we couldn't send a meaningful response. If a customer presses return and you get an immediate email back, what comfort does that give you? Okay, return worked. That's all that tells you. It doesn't tell you anybody's doing anything. It just says return worked. The idea of the response was, here's my name, here's my number, I have your case, here's data I need, a meaningful response. If we can get AI to do that, then we can automate it. So let's forget what we said we couldn't do 15 years ago, the processes we set up a long time ago. Let's look at the ground up. How can we change our process? How can we make it more effective and do the things we need to do? So that's another role. Architects, AI architects is another role we're looking at. If you think about the support center, we have a lot of processes in place. We use a lot of tools. Who's going to architect that whole layout from an AI perspective, and what AI tools we're going to use, where they're going to work, what are they going to do, how they're going to fit in? Because we can piecemeal it, and that's how we kind of started out, was people writing this and that and this and that. Or we can look at it holistically. and really build architecture around it. And also that integrates with AI, who provides a lot of these systems. It also integrates with other organizations in our broader umbrella of organizations in the CSO, like the support account managers or the customer success managers, field support, PS, professional services. We got to make sure we're working across the organizations. I can't go buy one solution and somebody else could buy a solution, do the exact same thing from a different vendor. Makes no sense. But how do we architect it? What solutions make sense? What are we trying to go after? So those are the type of roles, Mark, that we were really thinking about. The data, the governance, the content governance, the architect of the solutions, and then the processes. We really got to start over and do this right. And we're, like I said, we're thinking about rebuilding the way we do support, reimagining completely the way we do support. But back to your point about finding information on ChatGPT and everything else, it's the same thing. It's leveraging knowledge from the internet. When you go to ChatGPT, that's what it's trained on. No different than going to Google, really. But if your data is not ready to be presented in a generative answer, then they're not going to present the right data to your customers. At the end of the day, I don't care if the customer comes to the website or not, as long as they get the answer they need and be successful with my products. So we've got to think about how we write our data or do our data and our content so that it can be presented in that format by whatever tool that's out there that can access that data. But also, too, not all of our data is public. So they may not get the right answer if they use that tool, or may not get a complete answer. So we really have to think about, is it necessary to keep all of our data private? Will we harm the customer by not letting all of our data be public or all of our content be public? A lot of these things we just have to rethink about. And the measures, again, rethink how you're doing your measures, because the game has changed. So it's a big topic to think about. It makes my head hurt when I go down that path.
Well, I don't blame you for having your head hurt. It is, as I mentioned, the pace of change is just, I think, positively scary. You know, ASP has tried to do a report about AI. We did a report, I don't know, 5 more years ago about AI use in support, and it was obviously very early then. But we tried to do one, I think, a year and a half or so ago. And by the time we had done enough research to be able to write about it, this whole situation had changed. Mm-hmm. And it was obsolete before it got into print, before we could publish it. Yep. And I feel the same way now. If we tried to do a report on Agentic, I think before we could gather enough data to be able to have something worth reporting, it would have changed. And it's not. I have to say personally, I think of it more as revolutionary than evolutionary, just simply because of the pace of change.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so fast.
Yep. And we got to attack it that way. If we don't, like I say, we will be evolutionized right out of the business because other people are doing the revolution. And so we got to do the revolution too.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Well, James, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge this morning. You're on LinkedIn, you said, if people want to send you a question there.
Absolutely.
And I'll be talking about, I'll do a wrap up at the end of the day, but you're just the first amongst. John is let me read it here so I get it right. Cognitive Support Platform Architect, Senior Technical Staff Member of IBM Finance and Operations. But he and I had, well, first of all, he's been a judge for us on support websites for years. And I find him particularly knowledgeable, but we'd exchanged some emails recently and he showed me that he was following Agentic. So I asked him to prepare a presentation, but note the emphasis on the words "so far," because we ain't seen nothing yet compared to what we're going to see, right, John?
Yep, absolutely. No, when we talked about it, your first ask to me was, "Have you been doing anything with Agentic AI?" And I said, "Yeah, only for the last 7 months," but it had become the consuming element of my job, not planned out to do that, but like James was talking about, it became a urgent item that everybody had to figure out and what we wanted to do. And so yes, we all jumped in probably at the same time to understand how it worked. But then also, just like you mentioned, I could write this presentation a week ago, and there's a couple of things already out of date, and we'll have some new things that come out next month. And if we redo this again in even January, we'll have all sorts of different things. So it is absolutely the most rapidly evolving thing that we have seen in the 20 years I've been doing electronic support, technical support. So,
well, John, take it away. Go ahead and make your presentation.
Okay, so let me get going here. And like we said, one of my big fears was to make sure, because we didn't really have a lot of coordination between presenters, wanted to make sure we weren't overlapping. But so far, I think we're at least going to talk about some slightly different things. Today, I'm going to spend hopefully not very much time giving you just my own perspective of what the concept of agentic AI is and how it's different and why you should care. But then what I am going to talk about is our specific experience at IBM with some of the platforms and tools that we have been experimenting with, what we've used, and how they have worked for us, and then talk about what we've learned from doing that, and then going on what we plan to take forward and keep growing. But one of the things I didn't include, and as I was listening to James's presentation, probably would have been helpful, is to understand almost a timeline of the rate and pace of change here. Because as he mentioned, and we have the same experience, our support organizations have been on pathways toward using AI or cognitive or whatever machine learning tools or other things like that for many years. In fact, one of the first things I had worked on back in, I'm trying to think now, maybe 2010, that was in that area, was building like a little chatbot assistant where you would go through and identify here's the different intents that a particular customer might go through, and where can you send them to these various things. And at the time, we thought that was spectacular. You can have it, respond in natural language and give these different pathways and come up with different answers. Thought that was the greatest thing ever. But as we immediately started to roll that into more and more things, we realized, well, that's going to take a lot of time to build all of the different pathways. You build it and then it becomes obsolete. And so, every time we have tried to use various things that have come up along the way, we've always found they have problems scaling, they have problems maintaining, and things like that. But there's a radical difference with agentic AI in that it is continually evolving and does have some capabilities. So let's talk a little bit about what the heck it is. So I should be clear and upfront, and hopefully, similar to everybody else, I of course used AI to help me build my presentation. It's not like I just sat down and came up with my own elements here, obviously the insights and stuff like that. But when I said, oh, I need to build a slide to explain what the heck agentic AI is, why should I try to come up with the answers myself? So we'll talk about some of the various ways that we use it. But as James mentioned, this is a revolution all the way from just constructing things, planning things, architecting things, to actually using them. But even on our back end offices where we're actually just presenting things, talking about how you communicate between different people, AI is inserting itself into those places as well. So agentic AI, the main difference here is that it has the ability to do what the tool calls its own reasoning and planning. Where you're comparing it, for example, to a generative AI, where you ask it one thing and it goes through and gives you one answer, it's trying to come up with the best answer for one particular thing. But an agentic engine actually goes through and says, okay, well, I see what you're asking me, but I'm going to decide here is the set of steps, the plan, for example, to actually fulfill that request. And some of it might be to go out and get a generative answer, but some of it may actually go to do something else. So you might want a generative answer, but then you want it to actually do something with that answer, like update a case or make a change to a record that you have. And so that's where the autonomous reasoning engine sort of comes in. You explain, or what you set up the AI by telling it the different actions that it can perform. You can give it skills, and you can structure it in those ways. But then you give it the ability to understand how to reason which skills to go ahead and use. Then these things have the ability to then go and adapt as people use them. So more and more you can have the tool, and there's lots of different tools and different paradigms of doing this, but you can have the tool interact with the user to say, okay, well, here's what I want to do. Is that the right thing to do? Or you can just have it act proactively, do the different things, depending on how comfortable you are with it, or what sort of knobs and dials you set on how independent you want it to perform. But it can go through and actually perform the actions or seek input from the users. But one of the real benefits is the ability to sort of plug into all of the stuff that you've already built. Generative AI is like James said, great at finding stuff that you put out on the internet or put into a particular repository that you've gone through and made it available to your generative AI. But what about, all of those different little things that you've built, whether it be an API to go generate something in Jira or GitHub or Zendesk, or what if you wrote a little tool that went and analyzed a log dump file, or you created another application where you have all of your pending customer sales or things like that that's completely disconnected in another system. Well, rather than try to take all of that stuff and dump them into any kind of centralized single database, the Agentic AI can utilize the tools that you've already built to interact with all those systems. You just have to give it the ability to go use those tools, and then it can perform those actions on your behalf, whether that be just looking up to something or actually making changes into the platform. And then lastly, one of the key benefits is that it learns as the users work with it. It has the ability to say, okay, well, my best plan for an action like this was to go through and do this one, then this one, then this one. And as it interacted with users, it learned, well, you actually need to insert this other piece in there somewhere along the way. And it has the ability to continue to evolve and learn those steps. And of course, you have the ability to go in and tweak it and change it and give it instructions, but it has that capability there. And so just to fine-grain that one point, there's a lot of differences between generative AI and agentic AI, but there's also a lot of overlap. In fact, I don't think agentic AI would be a thing without initially having generative AI. You can't, there's a great way to say, yeah, sure, I could build all these little APIs and I could have a little tool run through and do them, but without the concept of actually taking the results from those actions and running them through a generative AI engine to actually explain what happened to the user and actually create a human readable response from the results of the APIs, you're really not getting the same benefits. So agentic is kind of they work really well together, but if you do want to take the differences between them, you can look at generative AI being very closely to, I want to do this particular thing, write me this, create this particular thing, whether it's a piece of text, a piece of image, a piece of code, do all of this stuff for me and then give it to me and I'll go make the changes. Or agentic, go ahead and do all this stuff for me, but you make the changes and go through and have the capability and ability to go execute those steps. Now, I wanted to throw this slide in here just as a example because again, the question, I think everybody is probably has no need to be convinced why they should care about looking into agentic AI, but figured it would be helpful to throw in some quick quotes from probably folks that you would recognize, as well as just some top level information about what the trend here is that people are seeing. And clearly, if you're here and paying attention, you're already understanding why you need to get into this particular arena in your support business. But this is something that has gone beyond the level of what I would consider just traditional support executive looking. You know, we're very attuned to our, you know, support level leads going through and saying, yeah, we need to make these changes. We need to do knowledge centered support. We need to do these other things. But the agentic element has gotten up to the top level C-suite of really looking at, you know, where can we look at agentic all over the place, and then understanding that agentic is a huge game changer for support. And some of the statistics that they continue to put out, you know, are probably a little bit, you know, overly optimistic, but definitely have the capability to excite the folks into saying we need to spend time and money and resources on making these changes. So we won't go through all of those, but we'll leave those on there. So what I wanted to do through the presentation was talk a little bit about some of the frameworks of implementing agentic AI, and then seeing how we decided to go through and look at doing those things. And the way that I structured this was to sort of talk about there's really a couple of different types of agentic AI solutions that folks can interact with. And chances are you're not going to just stick with one. You're probably going to have a combination of a couple of these things, as we'll show that we did as well. But I wanted to at least give a framework to sort of understand how you can, you know, keep them separate a little bit. And so my suggestion was to go through and put these into kind of three different camps. The first camp I call these platform-based tools, and these are AI tools that are built within the platforms that you already are using for support. And this is a very common practice now, and as folks can attest to, because they probably already have had their existing vendors talk to them about these, that all of the major support platforms that everybody is used to using, whether they be Salesforce or ServiceNow or Dynamics or others, have started to integrate more and more agentic capabilities right into the platform. And they are adding them in at a very rapid pace and putting them through there. Now, platform-based tools have some great benefits because, you know, obviously they're built by the people who run the platform, so they're kind of tightly integrated. They know what to do. They often have very quick no-code, low-code development kind of things, you know, just drag and drop and write instructions and things like that. They also have the ability of sort of saying, okay, well, since it was built by the people who built the platform, they have more understanding of how the platform works, how the data model works, how to get around and do stuff. And they're also much more integrated into the platform itself. They might be popping in on the side or you know, hovers and different things like that that are not available in other tools. And then another benefit of using a platform-based tool is obviously you're already working with that vendor. And so adding the AI capabilities from that vendor just means, you know, one less company you have to interact with, one less vendor to work with, and things like that. Now, there are some limitations of using platform-based tools, and those are things like, you know, you're kind of locked into what they provide you. If you want to add in this other piece of capability, you sort of have to figure out how to work that in and add in the pieces and changes that you want. Sometimes you can do it by modifying the existing tools that are there, but sometimes there are limitations and you may not be able to pull in exactly what you want. Some vendors also, they have a predefined set of LLMs, and more of them are bringing the ability to change out the models and bring in whatever kind of element you want. But you still have to work within the constraints of what they're able to produce for you and the time frame that they're releasing them. Of course, none of these folks are charities, so they are not giving these things away for free. So chances are, if you are going to add on one of these tools, there's the possibility that might increase your overall licensing costs. You may have to pay for some additional storage or other things like that, depending on what they're doing. And then you obviously have to figure out how to integrate that into what you have. One of the key things, and we'll talk about some of them, but when there's a platform-based tool, it makes a whole lot of sense for the data that it's working with to be in the platform. And there are different ways to work through that, but a lot of times people have found that using a platform-based tool, they become even more integrated into that one single platform. They have to put their some additional data into that platform in order for the AI tools to work together on it. So then the second set that I wanted to highlight were these things that I decided to call them independent agentic AI tools. And I'll be honest and say this is a list generated by an agentic AI tool going out and me asking it for some examples. I haven't used any of these, but went through and looked at what they did. And there are probably 1,000 others that I could add into this platform, and there will be another 10 tomorrow and another 10 the next day. But these independent tools have the promise of basically being able to integrate into your existing platforms and work with multiple platforms simultaneously. They are oftentimes specialized, potentially even for a potential industry or specific implementation. So you might have one that's designed to manage, incident managements through an ITSM process, and then another one that's designed specifically for, automotive issues, or another one that's designed specifically for FedRAMP issues or something like that. So they have a lot of specialization. So here, take some time to find the right tool that you want to use and make sure it has the functionality that you need. But these tools have the ability to actually do some cross-tool functionality. So for example, they can oftentimes integrate between your CRM system or your support platform and your development systems, your communication interaction. So, you can more seamlessly integrate the work that your support folks are doing with the stuff that's coming out of Slack channels or Teams channels, or the work that the development team is putting into Jira or GitHub or other tools like that, and have that all pulled together into a single space. And then one of the other benefits of these independent tools is they have a different release cycle than your traditional platforms. They can oftentimes, put out weekly, monthly kind of updates and continue to rapidly innovate, whereas sometimes the platform teams have a little bit more effort in testing to make sure that they're doing something for everybody. Now, there are definitely some cons of these tools, and the biggest one is really just finding the right one, finding which one you want to use. Does it have all the capabilities, and how much is it going to cost you to do this different thing and put all those things together? But once you even decide on which one to integrate, you definitely do have some additional complexity just making sure it integrates into your existing tooling. Depending on how well it fits into the platforms that you're using, there may be a fragmented user experience. You may have to have folks go into another window or another tab to utilize this thing. And then, of course, as soon as you're starting to work with multiple tools, you have the potential for, just making sure the data is being passed in the right way, being transferred securely, held securely, and things like that. The third thing that we had looked at and talked about is what I would consider kind of the build your own solutions. And a lot of folks, again, have a combination of all of these things, but all of the various AI platforms, and we talked about several of them already during even the first discussion, these base platforms that are based on both doing generative AI, they are now often adding in agentic capabilities on top of them. And these base platforms aren't ones that you can just immediately plug in. There's not like, a Gemini for support that you can just install and pop in, but the base platforms have the ability to add tools and capabilities onto them that you can go ahead and use within your overall platforms. Now, the benefit of using one of these is really that you can, you have this base of AI capabilities, but you can decide exactly what you want to do, how you want to do it, have the full level of control and where to insert it into your workflows. You have a lot more control over the data and where it's used and where it's stored, different things like that. And potentially you have a little bit more modular elements. You can start with little small things that you build, and you don't have to, pay for all the licenses for everybody on the entire platform. You can go ahead and start building things as you want to. But there are obviously downsides to the build your own solution approach, which include higher costs of developing and maintaining it. And then one of the things that we found is a lot of times you'll see that these platforms, while they don't necessarily change as rapidly as some of the other ones, they do come out with new models regularly. They can deprecate models. I know a lot of people ran into issues when ChatGPT started deprecating some of their older models and moving to newer models. So you can have some churn with these platforms when they change their underlying models, and because they are sort of essentially independent, almost utility platforms, there's a lot less incentive for them to continue to sort of make sure that they have all the full backwards compatibility and stuff like that you would find from some of the other platforms that you're working with directly. The other thing, obviously, is if you're building your own solutions, it takes a little bit more time to think about them, how you're going to put them together, and so you'll have a potentially longer time to actually see some value. And that's one of the key things that probably folks are recognizing now is within these tools, your executives are now having a much accelerated expectation of the rapid value. Like James had talked about, and I'm sure other folks will talk about, the expectations are now we can think of this new tool, put it out in a couple of months or less, where we used to have cycles that were in the months and years kind of time frame. It's now in the weeks time frame, and then actually have them productive from day one. No training elements, no other things. And so the time to actually realize value from some of these tools is one of the key things that folks are going to ask for. And you've got to make sure that whatever solution you design or build or decide to implement is going to produce that value for you quickly. All right. So I'll go ahead and move on, and I'm going to talk very specifically about two platforms that we've been working with in our organization, and talk about what we found implementing them, as well as some of the things that we plan to do in the future. Now, I'm not trying to necessarily talk up any particular platforms, just these are the ones that we happen to be using. And also, I think the experience is a little bit potentially to be universal, because we're talking about two of the base ones that a lot of folks might interact with. So the two platforms that I'm going to talk about, one is Salesforce, and then I'll also talk about an IBM tool called Watson X. So on the Salesforce side, for those not aware, IBM has we went ahead and started moving our entire support operations from a homegrown solution that was built on a mainframe back in the 60s to Salesforce. We started that journey in 2017, moved it over pretty quickly. We then also moved most of our sales functions over to a Sales Cloud function soon after that. And so we have now really integrated a lot of our support and sales teams together working on the Salesforce platform. We really jumped in on both of these tools to understand how we could use Salesforce's agentic platform that they call Agentforce. They introduced a little bit over a year and a half ago. And we started to understand how we could start to use that in both of these endeavors, how we could make them work together, and how we could start to roll that out to others. So just for folks not aware, I won't go too deep into these, but Agentforce is, like I said, the Salesforce-centric experience. It builds in a couple of different capabilities, and they're changing very rapidly, adding more capabilities as they go along. But basically, you have the ability to build these things that are called agents that allow you to interact with them in various places. You can put the agents directly for your support agents to interact with. You can put them over for your customers to interact with, and they can even be built into almost a record, so it can be like an assistant that's going along with you. So you could have, for example, a service assistant that is helping your give some advice or next steps to your support representative who's working on a case. One of the big benefits of the Agentforce platform is that it's built and integrated directly into the Salesforce platform, so it knows about the data that you already have in Salesforce. It already knows all of your existing objects, all of your records, who has access to what records. It respects your sharing model and data models and things like that. But it also has access to any of the customizations that you've done. So, when you try to interact with some of the external platforms outside of Salesforce, they may know what the base of Salesforce does, and they have interactions with everything that comes out of the box. But if you've made some significant changes to how your cases operate, or you created your own custom, account form because you needed something different than what Salesforce has out of the box, none of those other platforms will have that capability directly. But within the Agentforce platform, you have a little bit more direct capability because it can read the stuff that you have within that environment. Now,
Eric, and
might have to pop somebody on mute there, but we'll go through. And the last thing I'll highlight, one thing about the Salesforce platform is it does rely on using another application within Salesforce called the Salesforce Data Cloud, which is sometimes considered a separate product, but it's more and more integrated into the tool right now. That data cloud has the ability for you to add data that comes outside of your Salesforce instance, as well as data that's inside of your Salesforce instance, to have sort of a centralized unified data repository that your agents can interact with. And I'll mention agents being, the agentic platforms there. So it has the ability to sort of bring in data from a lot of different places and sort of make your whole Salesforce environment smarter there. But it does have that requirement that you really have to include that as part of your design. So we'll talk about what has gone well for us, and then where I think there's some things that we learned we could do better both ourselves and within the platform. So what's great about this platform so far is it's built in, it's easy to use, it's easy to configure, it's very easy to get started. We can train folks in how to set this up in a day, going through between the Trailhead information as well as our own internal development stuff. It's not hard to get active, and it's not hard to get something out into the production environment very rapidly. It also has the benefit of being, very well built into the platform. It has an easy navigation interface, and because it's so contextually aware of what's going on the platform, for example, if you pop it up and you are asking about it to tell you about something and you use the word this, it's going to know, oh, well, that's the record you're on. I know what you're doing. You don't have to go out and tell it which case am I talking about or which other thing am I doing. Salesforce has also gone through and created a whole bunch of pre-configured things so you can get going quickly. It has it's built in all of the ability to work with the standard stuff that you would normally see, and as long as you haven't customized too much, you can use those directly. And then you have the ability to add in all of your own functions that you've built over the years, so it can plug into things that you've already built. You don't have to go through and rewrite any of your code to make it work with the agentic capabilities. There's one other thing here that I'll mention is that the Salesforce team definitely talks about a core piece of their platform being an element of security and governance that they have, and they call it their Einstein Trust Layer. You can read more about it over there, but the thing that's interesting about this, and when we looked at this versus some other platforms, is a lot of people are very, or have been for a while, a bit more skittish about using some large language models or generative AI because they don't know how much of the data that is private to you is being transmitted over to that large language model, and how often that model can go ahead and then consume information that you're passing over to it. Well, one of the benefits of the platform that's built, and this isn't the only one that has it, there are other platforms that do something similar, but they do actually anonymize and obfuscate stuff as it goes back and forth. So they do it in a smart way of saying, okay, I'm going to extract this piece of data, replace it with another kind of piece of anonymized data, and then take it over to the LLM and then come back and then replace it coming back. So your data about your customers or your accounts or your contacts is never actually in the LLM. It's only within your platform and has that slight benefit of doing that. So now where we struggled a little bit or could have improved a little bit here is that actually prior to jumping into the platform or into the agent stuff, IBM had not actually adopted the data cloud design. We had all of our data in our service cloud and all of our data in our sales cloud, but we didn't have that centralized connection between them using data cloud. We also wanted to have a centralized connection between them because it obviously makes sense for these two tools to talk to each other, to share data back and forth, but we didn't necessarily want everybody on one platform. So having a centralized data cloud between them that would work together was a critical piece that we had to build, or I have to build it from scratch, but implement getting that into our design. And there was a little bit of a learning curve to get all that working and synchronizing and going things back and forth. Another thing, and again, I know from looking at different support applications that there are a variety of different places that people decide to place their knowledge. Salesforce obviously has a built-in knowledge platform, but a lot of folks may use that, for example, for their support KB documents, but their actual core documentation is in another platform, or maybe their community forums are in another platform, or other things like that. Salesforce obviously has some capability to put all those things together, but most companies over time end up with having their knowledge in different platforms. And so in order to actually use that, you have to figure out how are we going to get Salesforce to read that information. Now, there's ways to do it. They will suggest you can always pull it all into the same data cloud, or you can find different ways to build different connectors and ways to connect up with that. But you definitely have to have a thought of where all your knowledge is and what kind of knowledge will your agents need when you're building this. And then we'll mention this just once, just because I got to be transparent about it, is that there's a lot of information in Salesforce. You have tons, and I'm sure if all of the folks who, because I know a lot of the different teams that we have here use that platform, there's a lot of dashboarding, reporting, a whole bunch of features for tracking, but we'll say that the way that Salesforce decides or tracks how you're using Agentforce is complex. I'll just leave it at that, and say that you aren't always sure what things are going to count for what. They're working on getting better and making that more transparent as they go through there, but that is a little bit of something that caused some consternation as we were sort of trying to understand it and say, well, what happens if we do this? What's that going to end up doing to our overall usage or something like that? So just one other piece to understand, but just wanted to highlight all of those. Then I did want to, because IBM has, we probably have way too many different initiatives to work on different AIs, but we definitely have been working on multiple fronts here, and we wanted to highlight and at least compare, using some other platforms. So one of the platforms I highlighted was this one that, of course, we built ourselves. So we're going to use our own tooling called watsonx. Now, watsonx is a very similar sort of platform to some of the larger base things that I talked about. I included it when I talked about the overall sort of independent, not specifically tool-built AI platforms, but the whole, general build your own solution. So it provides a portfolio of different products. They include a core AI engine that has generative AI and its own ability to bring in different large language models and run your workflows and business and things like that. It has a data governance model. It has a data model and a governance model both together. But one of the pieces of the overall platform is a piece that we call Orchestrate, which is actually the agentic add-on or agentic core of the platform. So you can go ahead and essentially, just like you would do in any of these other platforms, create an agent and say, here are the topics that this agent can cover. Here are the skills and tools that agent can go ahead and use. And then you can take that agent and deploy it in lots of different places. You can embed it in other tools. And it has the ability to connect to a lot of different things depending on what you give it access to. So we found this tool worked really well because it had a very similar sort of paradigm to creating agents. You could come up with a design of saying, this is the sort of topics that I want to have, and these are the tools that we want to use. And it also has a similar low-code builder interface. So you can just say, all right, here are my instructions, write them out in plain English rather than in code, and then tell it what tools you can go ahead and use and how to use them, and then go from there. You also have the ability, because it's an independent tool, to interact with a lot more multiple systems. So you can say, I want to have something come from Salesforce and then bring it over to Jira and then go to GitHub and then go to ServiceNow. And it's just as easy to connect to 4 platforms as it is to connect to one. And there's no, sort of extra layer of having to go through and connect everything. However, there is some effort of embedding data from different systems. So if you have data that you're moving from one system to another, you may have to go through and do some transformation or mapping or adjustment as you go from thing to another, because they're not all in a single system. Now, one of the things we've continued to work on is that while this has the ability to take agents and stick them and embed them in lots of different places, it's great for embedding on like a customer website. It's a little harder to embed it in a existing tool, whether that be ServiceNow or Salesforce, because there's only so many places you can stick an extra little frame or widget or things like that. You also potentially have a little bit more difficulty in getting it to support what we'd call context awareness. So, the embedded platform tools, you can say, hey, what's the status of this case? Whereas a tool that you're sort of framing in may not have as much contextual awareness. It may ask you to tell it, well, which case are you talking about? Then you do have more effort of, connecting across different systems. You want to be able to pull all of those things together. But one of the things we found and actually caused us to create a whole new project area to work on this was coming up with the concept of making sure you have the correct identity when the agent is interacting with the tool. So this goes into maybe some bits of technicality here, but when you're building a particular tool and you say, hey, I want to interact with Salesforce, or I want to interact with GitHub, you have to make sure that when you're interacting with that platform, you're doing it as the user who actually asked you to perform the operation. It's really easy to go ahead and create like a functional super user ID, because then it can interact with that platform, it has the access to all of the records, and it has access to all of the fields and everything that you want. But the problem is then you lose the transparency of things that the user has done. You don't know who did that because it was all done by a centralized functional ID. So you have to have a way to recognize who the user is that performed the action or asked the agent to perform the action, and then record that. And that identity has to be something that you can figure out how to pass from system to system and keep consistent. That becomes a little bit more of a struggle. You still have that regardless what type of tooling you're using, but it becomes even more apparent as you start to integrate more and more tools. And then, of course, whenever you're crossing different platform boundaries, you've got different hurdles here and there and things like that. All right, so before I jump on, I'm going to answer the question here real quick in the chat. So thank y'all for popping those in there. So the question was, if you integrate watsonx or could apply to any other tool, but with data sources like Jira, GitHub, without ingesting their data, do you need to rely on those platforms having vector representations of the data for semantic search? And it really depends on what it is that you're actually doing. So yes, if you are intending to use something that is basically doing a vectorized search or semantic search and say, hey, go out into Jira and find me all of the issues that have this particular concept or area of thing that you're looking for, then yeah, it definitely helps to have some of that data into a centralized vector data store. But there are also a bunch of direct APIs, depending on how much you need to sort of get into the guts of them. You can probably get away with a good chunk of stuff being just generic API search and query based. Now, it depends on where you want to put those different search processors. So for example, if you were to say, let me take my question to a LLM and it will construct a query that will take the search that the user is asking for and maybe come up with other keywords, other ideas, and put that in, and then it calls the one repository, it might come up with a better answer. Or you could go ahead and have the engine, whether it be Jira or GitHub, return you back a lot more data, feed that into an LLM that would then go through and try to pick out the better stuff. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But of course, if you had all the data and you could stick it into a single data store and read across that, that's even easier, but that's another layer of difficulty in making sure you have all the data in one place. And if none of that made sense, the vector data stores and semantic searches are how LLMs kind of understand the context of stuff. Our traditional search engines, for the longest time, were very much keyword based, where you would go through and you would say, hey, I'm looking for these words, and it's going to find those words. And if it gets really good, it can say, okay, well, I found these words and they were close together. That's even better than just finding the words. But the vector and semantic representations allow you to basically not only take the things that are in that particular record and convert them into concepts or tokens or things like that. And so essentially, rather than having a particular thing where you're just looking at a particular word. You actually have an understanding of what's behind that set of words. And then as you're looking for stuff, you don't have to just rely on just a perfect keyword match. It's not the same as just, the I forget what they call it, but where you do the word formats and you're just changing content to contents or consent or something like that. You just modify the word a little bit. This is actually understanding the underlying intention of those tokens, and then you can actually take a little bit more from there, which is a really powerful capability of generative AI, but you got to figure out where to make use of it. And so we'll also pop in. Don't tempt me to go into deep technical details. We can certainly do that, but we'll try to keep some of this high level. So then, just to make sure we keep moving along, I'll talk about what we found in our lessons learned. So I'll highlight this really quickly and then leave plenty of time for some questions here. So what we found is that, number one, you can't just start and say, oh, let's just apply agentic AI all over the place. You have to have at least some sort of conceptual solid foundation, because AI cannot really solve a structural problem in your support organization. You have to have a working support organization to start with. And we found that honestly, following some of the things that the ASP judges on when we go through and do that is really a great place to start. If you start with a knowledge-centered design where you actually have your data in knowledge, you have some consistent tooling, you have these consistent processes, you have a cohesive customer experience, so you have one place for customers to go. All of those things make it easier for you to start and do it. You can certainly ignore those and still roll out and put agentic AI into whatever you have, but you'll have a much more likely success and quicker time to value if you have some of those basics there. The other thing that's super critical is you have to know how you're doing. You have to be able to judge your improvements, and so you have to have a set of support measurements to begin with. You can't just go through and say, oh, we're going to go ahead and introduce this one new capability. Oh, we should start recording now. Well, no, you have to have started recording a while before you introduce that. So you have a baseline and you have the ability to actually understand, are you making an improvement or are you not? James talked about, you have to be aware that maybe some of the traditional measurements that you've used before are not the right ones to use. You might have used measurements about website visits or click-through rates or other things like that. And depending on how you've implemented your solution, those may not be the right metrics anymore. So you've got to understand what are the right metrics and then make sure you have things that you can look back to and do that. And then lastly, another foundational element is you really have to have a governance path and clear understanding of where things are and who's going to have access to what. How can we audit things? How can we make sure that we know exactly what happened in any particular thing? So, and you also have the ability for somebody to jump out of anything where you put them into a AI interaction. These things called escalation paths, where you can just say, okay, yeah, that's great, but can you get me over to the support agent, and have the ability to do all of those. The other things that we would recommend based on what we've done, but everybody can do things differently, is to really start with maybe some scoped use cases. I wouldn't necessarily recommend immediately, if you haven't already been on the journey, wiping out your whole website and saying we're going to build it from AI from the ground up to start with. Maybe try a few strategic use cases, figure out where those work, learn how those work, and get to that point. Once you've been using it for some amount of time, whatever's more comfortable, yes, start building and adding more use cases and expanding that out. But it definitely helps to get some initial feedback. Make sure you understand what your customers are comfortable with and what your agents are comfortable with, and then keep moving along. by doing that, you're basically creating some very specific tasks that these agents can perform. I think we talked about some of them, like doing case summarizations for handoffs, but you can do some more complicated things like rescheduling customer appointments, having the ability to quickly find and optimize schedules, going through and making some more complicated tasks. And as you get some successes from those will build in, and it will inspire the teams to give you some ideas as you're doing this. You also have to make sure, of course, that you've got to at least have some priority of what you're going to do. A lot of times people get really excited about this stuff and they'll immediately come up with 1,000 different ideas, and there's no way to implement all of those at once. You've got to sort of find a way to stay focused and implement a couple things at a time and move them rapidly, but get them out. Then lastly, and this we found very important, but I will have to make sure that to say that this may not be the norm for everybody, but what we found was that you have to set realistic expectations with the executives who are funding the changes here. They read the quotes like I had on earlier pages that say, oh yeah, we just turn this AI on and we can get rid of 30% of our staff or other things like that. AI is not an immediate magic bullet. There are some efforts that you've got to go through. You've got to tune it, make sure people are watching it when you first start it, make sure you're validating everything and communicating stuff. But you have to make sure that you do this in the right order. For example, start with the AI with the staff that you have, find ways to improve that, and then if there are savings that you can do, sure, go for it. But definitely what we've seen too often, and there's plenty of reports about it in the news, is folks will go ahead and decide to cut their staff and then say, oh, we're going to make up for that by implementing AI. Well, it kind of did it in the wrong order there, but we'll getting everybody on the same page like that takes some effort. And then, of course, I wanted to highlight, and I think James did too, definitely consider focusing either as many or even more improvements for your support staff as you are making for your customers. It's very important for your customers to get the benefit. You want to get their stickiness, their customer interaction, getting everything going from there. But your support agents are the ones who are actually going to be responsible for keeping updating and using these tools and stuff like that. And the more quality of life improvements you make for them, saving them repetitive, boring things that get in their way, they get more bought into improving the tool and working through that as well. And lastly, focus on, what are the long-term things you want to do, rather than just say, okay, we want to reduce the number of escalations by 10% in the next month. Think about what your long-term strategy is as you go through there. All right. I went through and didn't realize I was going to talk quite the whole hour, but we'll try to get that there and still have a few minutes for any other questions that folks might want to have. All right. Not seeing a whole lot, but Al, did you have any questions? Or let's see, I've got Christine asking a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's really lovely to see all of the stuff that you were saying. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the governance that you thought was needed to have in place before you started. I think I heard some emphasis on that word, and I was really excited to ask you a little bit more about it. It's something we're thinking a lot about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to implement governance in different AI solutions. Part of it is understanding who can do what particular pieces that they're able to interact with, and making sure that you have that identity that you're passing around and performing things with whether it be a role-based access control kind of thing or other stuff like that. But then you have to also make sure that you're recording what's happening, and you have to have somebody actually looking at what's happening to make sure that you're doing things correctly. And now we're getting to the point where we'll be very clear. You almost have to use an AI to go and judge your logs, because you'll honestly create almost too many logs for a human to go through and go through and understand that. So you may have to even build an AI to start looking at your logs and auditing and decide, okay, well, these are things that look a little fishy and need to be investigated. But then a larger thing that I would talk about just on governance is making sure that you have some set of people. And I think James talked about him having like an AI workshop or council, some set of people who have kind of the say in the overall direction. Especially at a lot of our organizations, we're all technology companies, and we employ smart people who like to build things, like to develop things. They're very into technology, and these sets of tools are ones that people get all over the place. They have interactions with ChatGPT or Claude or Microsoft Copilot or Google Gemini all over, everywhere, in their work computers, in their home computers, and they immediately start to think, well, I could build this, or I could come up with these other things. You do need to have some sort of sense of, well, what are we going to allow everybody to use? As a quick example, one of the things that one of our folks proposed, we were able to say, no, hang on, was, rather than use the built-in tool that we hadn't quite deployed for them yet, they were like, well, I could take this case and I could print it to a PDF and then just ingest it into ChatGPT and have it summarize the case for us. And we were like, no, please don't do that. And explain why, and went through and quickly came up with solutions to say, no, this is the way that we should do it, so it's not exposed in any way. But there are going to be folks who are in your organizations who are going to think, oh, I can just do this. It's AI. Great. No problem. You do have to have that sort of centralized set of folks who are understanding what is your usage of AI, where can you use it, and what can you do or not do. Not to necessarily toot everything that IBM does, but we have for now a couple years rebranded one of our CIO organizations, the Office of Privacy and Responsible Technology. It used to be our customer data privacy office, but we kind of expanded their role to include actually having an oversight element of every AI implementation that we put in the entire company. So whatever you're going to go ahead and do, you do have this centralized organization that has the ability to go through and say, yeah, you're doing the things the right way. Here's where you could improve. Here's where you could do some other things. And having that centralized governance is definitely helpful. Depending on how large your organization is, ours is unwieldy. So hopefully you have one that might be a little smaller and can have a more centralized organization. But whatever works for your company.
Thanks, man.
Okay, any more questions? We have maybe 2 minutes. Well, John, I think we've given them enough time.
All right. I'll make the same offer that James did. Yeah, easy to find me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out, and we'll probably see each other again at another one of these.
Well, John, thanks very much for a very informative presentation. You really gave me what I asked for. But as we both agree, just tune in next week and it'll all be obsolete. Well, not all of it, but some parts of it undoubtedly will be obsolete or passed up by the latest, newest thing. So fasten your seatbelts, folks. So Tanya, if you would please, why don't we do that? So let's queue up Christine Bryan from Red Hat. And let's hear what Red Hat has to say about Agentic AI and its importance to support.
And I think we'll see if Tanya.
We'll come back to Tanya after your presentation.
All right, let me share my screen.
Thank you, Christine.
Welcome. So hopefully you can all see my screen, which is about, it's called an open book. All right.
Yep, we can see it.
Fantastic. Then I think we're just about to get ready to get started. I'm actually going to move it to my other window just because I wasn't actually looking at my camera right there. So thank you everybody for coming today and for being invited. So thank you, Al, and everybody. I'm going to talk today a little bit about Ask Red Hat, which is a large conversational experience that we built on our customer portal. And I would really like it if you could learn from us and if we could share, kind of be open with our experiences and share with you what we've learned, and so we can kind of come back and learn from you as well. So just to start with, hi, my name is Christine Flynn Bryan, and I am a principal product manager at Red Hat. I work in our experience engineering team, which is the very large department that includes our support department. And when I'm not at work, I really like baking bread and playing video games, usually classic video games. I have a little Legend of Zelda poster up there. And this summer was the summer of K-pop Demon Hunters because I have a 7-year-old daughter, and so we practiced a lot of those songs together. So what I'm going to talk about today, just to kind of lay it out for you, is I'm going to go through the story of how Ask Red Hat launched, what our launch was like. There were a couple of key factors we had early on that set us up for success. And then I think I have the real meat of today's presentation, do this, not that. The subtitle of this could probably be Learn from Our Mistakes. But also from the things that actually worked, and a lot actually went right. So it's very cool to see things go so well. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about why it's probably a good time to invest in AI now, and what's coming next for us on the Red Hat Ask team. So let's get started talking about launch. So I'm going to set the scene. It is February of this year, 2025. There is an open rec that is not filled yet for a support virtual assistant product manager. And Red Hat's yearly conference summit is in May, and it is 12 weeks away. And I went to my manager, the director of AI experiences within our support engineering department, and I said, I think I'd like to do that. I was the customer portal product manager, a very large, broad, unified experience already, and I was like, I think I want to do this. And I think we can build it for Summit. And obviously she was pretty interested in that story. And so I pitched her on what we should do. And this is actually a slide from the original pitch deck, which was, let's replace the homepage of the customer portal with an AI-driven customer experience that showcases the best of what all of our teams are making while supporting the long tail of needs that drive our current success. By Summit, which is 12 weeks away. And at this point, 12 weeks from Summit, we had no engineers, we had no designers, we had no team, but I did have some Sharpies. And this is the original drawing that I wrote to sort of give everybody an idea of where I thought we should help. And it actually kind of has a little bit of phrasing on it that we'd said about our customer portal for a long time, which was that our motto was welcome back, we know you, we can help. So you can see that reflected here with welcome back, how can we help, right? And they said yes. They were like, yes, let's try this. Let's see if we could build this for Summit. It's going to be pretty cool experience. And I will say that the vision evolved pretty quickly into building something called an intelligent front door, which is a concept that Gartner published, I think, their first paper on in December of 2024. And if you do nothing else after this, please just remember to Google Gartner intelligent front door and go read their originating article about this is bringing all of this work together and being able to back it with some beautiful research from Gartner that helped explain what we were doing and why it mattered. It really helped us move a lot faster. And basically an intelligent front door is just that. Like when customers choose to come talk to us, they just want to ask Red Hat. They don't want to ask this team or this team or this team or this team. And so we have started building out this experience that is going to eventually be a single point of entry for Red Hat. And we started with the vast broadness of all of the topics covered by support. This is eventually what we did build. It is not on the customer portal homepage, although we did change the customer portal homepage a lot to get to this. It is a conversational search experience. It currently has interactive history. It covers a lot of different types of content. It knows about itself, which is where our sample queries came from. If you'd like to visit it, it is at access.redhat.com/ask, although you do need a subscription to check it out. And if you want to know a little bit about kind of what is in it and what it means and how we built it out, it has about 1.5 million pieces of content from our knowledge base, our product docs. We have content for product security. We have CVEs. We have product compliance information in there. It launched with 12 languages out of the gate, which I think was a really strong and lovely way to tell our global customers and partners that we value them really highly. And it costs $0 for all our subscribers. Like if you come to the customer portal, it costs $0 to use our portal as well. So we simply offer it at that cost. And since our launch in May, we've had about 30-something thousand unique users and even more, obviously, conversations and messages and interactions as we go. So although we didn't launch on the customer portal homepage, that vision really like framed us up for success in what we built. We were forced to go very, very broad. So we envisioned this like dual monitor setup where like you have something that Red Hat makes on one monitor and like Ask Red Hat on the other. And that was what we shot for. And I will say that we knew kind of going small, it might help a few people, but it wouldn't really make a dent in the big picture of overall support volume. It really wouldn't teach customers that they could self-solve more. It wouldn't showcase the best of what we have. And so when we aimed for the homepage, we were basically aiming to help everyone, which was very cool. And it's that because we aimed for the homepage, even though we missed, later on we edited the homepage so that it brought you directly to Ask Red Hat and invited you right in really early. I will say that up in the upper left here is a real set of queries that a real customer put into Ask Red Hat in production in September. Kernel panic not syncing, rescue mode, RHEL 4. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, we are on RHEL 10. This person was probably not having a great day, but they still came to Red Hat to see if we could help them with this ancient system that they're trying to work on today. And I just wanted to point out that a lot of the time, these AI experiences, especially your broad conversational support experiences, they are a long tail problem. And that means that, if you only look at your top questions and optimize for those, you're going to miss that there's hundreds of thousands of other conversations you need to be handling well. And there's a really nice synergy between support, which sees the breadth and variety of human experience every day. So support kind of like knows everything about long tail problems, and an intelligent front door and what we've built in Ask Red Hat really has like a kinship with support. And it's why support and AI actually kind of go very well together in this particular case. As I mentioned earlier, we did replace the homepage of the customer portal. It leads you right into Ask Red Hat, and we also put it in the nav. We're seeing lots of people kind of hop in, try it, get started. We're seeing some good engagement, which I will talk about a little bit towards the end. But I do have to admit, the question that you might all be thinking as you hear me talk about conversational search is Ask Red Hat really an agent? Depends on if you think search is sort of the kind of action that an agent can take. Some people say yes, some people say no. We've seen a lot of these terms in the AI space gain definition, and it's a little bit fluid and a little bit bordering. Whether you say it's yes or no today, we're certainly heading in the direction of it acting as an agent over the next several months. So even if today it doesn't quite fit your personal definition, it is a very large, very powerful experience. I think there's a lot to tell support teams about it around the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got set up really early for success in the Ask Red Hat project. It was only 12 weeks from when, we started the idea. We said, yes, we should do this. 12 weeks later to Summit, we did in fact make it. We launched our project. It was live in the public. It wasn't a laptop demo. But there were a couple things that we did very early that set us up to be able to succeed that fast. One of them was that we did a lot of storytelling around the importance of what we were doing. So one of the only business books I like, which is It's Your Ship by Captain Abrashoff, I think is how you pronounce it. He said in his book, I found that the more people knew what the goals were, the better buy-in I got and the better results we achieved together. And my big takeaways from this book were about helping people understand the importance of what it is that you're working on and giving them the ability to own and make choices and make decisions within that space that line up with, the goals that you're all trying to achieve together. And I have to say, this is something that we did pretty early on. I think everyone really had this sense we were working on something that was really important here at Red Hat. And we lined up a great team to go after the things that we were trying to do. And then we trusted those teammates to take ownership of the solution. And I will say, I had nothing to do with model selection. I was not even in the room. I just trusted our team to do it, and they delivered. And it was really fantastic experience kind of through the build process to see that a whole team come together. For our technical approach, I do want to say one of the choices we made that made a huge difference was we chose deliberately to stand on the shoulders of giants. We were able to launch in just 12 weeks because we built on existing experiences and on open source technology. Sometimes you see AI teams or just any engineering teams sort of have a little bit of not built here syndrome, or they feel that every problem is new and no questions have been asked before. And our team approached this sort of in the opposite direction. We had a lot of humility. We assumed that there were loads of people who were doing this directly or things related to it, or that people had attempted solutions in the past that we could learn from. We had a lot of experts on related teams like search engineering who had huge expertise that we brought into this project, even though that search engineering team wasn't sort of labeled an AI team. They kind of became one because we built off of our search engineering platform. And I will also say that by treating Ask Red Hat as just like a natural next step in the evolution of experiences that were already happening in the world of technology that we were already happening, it gave our team a lot of confidence in our vision and timeline. We are going to build a landmark conversational AI experience that covers every product, every version of every product, 1.5 million pieces of content. We're going to do it in 12 weeks, and it's not going to be a laptop demo. It will be in production. That is a pretty intimidating ask. And the more we could do to make the team feel like it was achievable, the better. And I still remember when I met with one of our AI advisors, and he's, we're like 1 or 2 weeks in at this point. We're sitting in person. We happened to be at an onsite together for something else. And he was like, I don't know how we could do this in 12 weeks. And I started laying it out. I was like, we have this in place. We have this in place. We already have an incredibly mature search engineering platform that does all of the retrieval for us. We already have this AI re-ranking project that we've already done it. We have this skill here. We have this team here. And I remember the moment that he just kind of sat back and he did this. And he just like looked up a little bit, and that was the moment where, because until then, I hadn't 100% been very sure that we could do it in 12 weeks, right? I'm not an engineer. I didn't go around and get a whole bunch of estimates. And that was the moment that I knew it was, in fact, going to be something that we could do in 12 weeks. I will also say that we approached AI as a teaming problem rather than necessarily a technical problem. So we swarmed at Red Hat in a way that I have really not seen I've been there about 5 years at this point. We had 170 thank yous to give out at the end of just our launch run-up. That's the number of people who were in. We had sort of a private Slack room just for people who were working on the experience. And we had, again, because we go back to that, like explaining the importance of it and what we're doing, we're swinging big and we're inviting collaboration. We had people from many different teams at Red Hat contribute. We ran into a problem in Patternfly at one point. Patternfly engineering manager was like, can you give my folks access to your code base? We'll just fix it for you. Yes, please. And so we invited people in, and they responded by coming in and helping. It was fantastic. And I will particularly point out that just our user testing group had 50 people. We had 50 testers on 20 different teams. This was not limited to support. It wasn't limited to any one product. We had members of the marketing team test. We had members all across Red Hat testing for us. And this didn't just give us the confidence we need for launch, but it actually spread that confidence all around Red Hat. So when someone would come to us with like a last minute worry, like, should we launch? Could we launch? What are you doing over there, team that's making this giant thing that's going to go on one of our largest websites? We would say, well, you have a teammate who tested. Ask John. Ask Praveen, right? And it spread. They ended up being these sort of like centers of confidence that would spread out throughout a whole team and sort of vouch for us a little bit that, yes, it is going to work. I know, I got in there, I checked it out. They invited me in. You could come in too, right? That openness and interest in having people work with us and collaborate with us really paid off on this project. And the last thing I will say, and it's a corollary to the teaming piece, is that we had massive executive support. Our leaders were very convinced of the promise of AI generally very early. Once we sort of convinced them of the promise of Ask Red Hat really specifically, they were incredibly strong advocates. You know, I think I had our VP of XE at one point, he literally just hopped on a call and he's like, Christine, I am in the building. I can walk down the hall and talk to that team if you need me to do that right now. And I was like, we do not. I think we got it. But that level of support was there for us kind of from day one all the way through our launch and beyond. And part of that was that they said no to other work on our behalf. Like, we didn't have to constantly be fielding different pings about systems that we used to maintain. There was a gap for a little while in product management of the customer portal. And everybody who attends the ASP Awards knows that the customer portal is incredibly critical to Red Hat. It's critical to our customers and partners and non-customer users. It is a huge source of pride that we've been an award winner for 15 years in a row. And we said, this is worth chasing for a little while over the existing problem space. So that really cleared the path for us to prioritize working on Ask Red Hat. And now we get to this section, do this, not that. Please do the things that we discovered worked super well for us. I have a few recommendations of things that did not work well. The first is I really do recommend that you make an experience that feels whole with understandable boundaries. So, you know, Ask Red Hat is very broad. So we cover many, many customer questions. So that seems like an obvious move, right? But the corollary to that is that we knew we couldn't do literally everything at the start. And when users play around and Ask Red Hat, they sort of naturally discover the boundaries of the experience. And those boundaries roughly line up to existing experiences at Ask Red Hat, like the customer portal. And so they kind of learn where the edges are. So they don't get frustrated or as frustrated when Ask Red Hat can't answer a question yet, because they kind of understand what kinds of questions it's good at and what kinds of questions it doesn't really tackle yet. If they ask about certification or training or a marketing webinar, they can kind of get a sense that it's out of bounds, and they can understand what has been provided to them and sort of celebrate it and use it the way it's been intended without feeling bad when they hit something that doesn't quite work yet. The next thing I will say is that you should definitely make your experience annoying and not worth anyone's time to hack. Part of how we de-risked our ambitious timeline is that we decided very early on to limit our conversational search just to published content. Now, there's some proprietary content in there, don't get me wrong, but we did that, and we required authentication and also a subscription. And what that means is that although people could try and behave maliciously in our experience, not only have we made it a little bit annoying for them to do so, like they have to log in and make the account, create the subscription. Like if you want to work with Red Hat, it's very low barrier. If you want to mess around with our AI, it's sort of an irritating barrier to get over, I suspect. But there's also like no jackpot at the end of the rainbow. There's no pot of gold in there. It's all published content. And so if someone was able to sort of prompt jack or trick Ask Red Hat, they wouldn't really get very much on the other side. So ultimately, it's not that, we obviously had many security practices, and we did, in fact, go through a full security review here at Red Hat. But part of what made Ask Red Hat easy to launch is that it essentially looked like and was kind of not worth somebody's time to mess around with. And so that's something that you could think about a little bit as you're continuing. It was an unexpected advantage we discovered over the teams at Red Hat that were building much more powerful agentic experiences. We were just kind of lower threat. One thing that I absolutely adore about Ask Red Hat, and was an outcome of other choices we make and not an intentional choice right from the start, is that we have a nearly real-time RAG. What that means is, because we built off of our existing search technologies and our search experience, it's a push-based search indexing system. And we have that now on the customer portal because our customers need really up-to-the-minute information, like if a CVE comes out, or there's a security issue, or even if there's just a new product launch, our customers want to be able to get information about it, like right then, right there, up to the minute, right? And what ended up happening as a result of how we built it is that when any of our authors press the publish button, a new piece of content shows up in Ask Red Hat in less than 5 minutes. We haven't tested the minimal amount of time, but I know it's also occasionally at least less than 4 minutes. So this allows all of our authors, particularly those in support, because the knowledge base is one of the biggest places that we can do this, to have an actual closed loop when it comes to Ask Red Hat and this AI experience. Something that you don't get on teams where it requires an engineer to do an MR push to get a new set of content into your rack, right? So what our support people can do is they can notice a problem, they can decide that it's important enough that they want to go take a look at it, they can create a piece of content or edit an existing piece of content, they press publish, a few minutes later the content is available to Ask Red Hat, and they can retest their query and see if the query is improved by it right then and there. And if it's not, they could probably do another round, because it takes that little amount of time to see whether or not you're impacting sort of a single high-value query. And this, in turn, makes a lot of those authors a lot stronger advocates for Ask Red Hat. It's their system. They're using it too. This kind of goes into something that I really believe about AI, which is that for any of us who are making AI experiences, we need to choose to be symbiotic and not parasitical when it comes to our content authors. We need to work with them. We need to give them all the information they need. We need to feed them details about how our system works so that they can make sure that they're using it well. And I think this just comes back to where lots of teams are at in the world right now, which is that there's just a lot of fear about AI. And because of all of the things that we've already done, Ask Red Hat may sometimes be wrong, but it is never slop. We don't see slop in Ask Red Hat. We see wrong answers sometimes, sure. But the reason it's never slop is because we've had decades to build the actual content set that we have invested in. Every single piece of content is true. We have been feverishly dedicated to telling the truth about how to use our products, how to fix them, how to get set up on them, all of that. And all of that content is ours, and we reuse it when we help people find it in Ask Red Hat. And so because we do that, we have authors, we invite them to get curious and Ask Red Hat. We want them to look around in it, find high profile issues, maybe work on them. We can actually then give them the tools they need to say, like, this thing that I did paid off because this support queue actually was impacted by it, right? This helps them tell the story back to their own leaders of how they are a part of this AI experience, even if they're not on an AI team. And honestly, like, we're sitting here in this position, we've made this absolutely new, amazing experience. We owe them our help because we wouldn't actually be here without them. And I do apologize, but I have to pause for just one moment because my daughter just came in the room. One sec. Sorry about the interruption, folks. School day just happened to be over right then. So hopefully that feels like a little dash of home for any of you. But in any case, coming back to this, we really do want to help colleagues be less scared when they kind of come to our experiences, or I mean, I think a lot of people just in the world right now are worried about AI, and they see it as this transformative thing that is happening, and change can be frightening. So the more we can reassure our colleagues and stand with them and give them everything they need, the better. So please choose to do this when you have the opportunity as well. Double slide. So in the do not do this category, I will say we have a couple things here. Content cleanup after launch. So some of the earliest Ask Red Hat answers to questions were embarrassingly out of date. I think we did not answer who is your CEO correctly at first, so that was kind of tough. We had some teaming problems after launch. You know, we had a lot of teams organized around making certain things. So like our K-base had content in it that was mostly made by support, and our product docs team would make product docs. And there were sometimes gaps that fell in between teams. We really didn't resolve those or start resolving those until after launch. And then obviously we wanted to sort of add obviously missing content, which we also did somewhat after launch. So for example, downloads on the customer portal were found originally through the navigation, and they weren't in our search. Why not? Well, we just hadn't added them. So we made sure that they were in our search, and therefore they were available to Ask Red Hat, right? And so one thing that you may notice about all of these things on this page is that those are just kind of best practices, and we could have done any of them before launch. And I will say that AI experiences shine a very bright light onto the value of best practices, into sort of where you have deferred implementing best practices. And some of those things that I just mentioned, we brought them up before launch at times, but AI helped us illuminate the cost that they posed to Red Hat as an organization. So jumping into sort of why do AI now, or, you know, why at all, maybe you'll be asking, because I certainly asked that myself. And I remember back in 2023, you can find presentations of me giving a story about how we are just in the middle of the hype cycle, which is one of my favorite things from Gartner of all time. And it's a little bit small on this slide, but I was like, we are in the peak of inflated expectations phase, and we're about to drop into the trough of disillusionment. Now is not the right time to invest in AI. And now I have to admit, I am a reformed AI skeptic. I do think it is transformative and worth investing in now. I think a little bit AI is in its early 1920s plane era, like airplane era, where I don't know if you've ever seen those like black and white montages of old airplanes. They don't even look like airplanes. They're moving very slow, and they're not very high off the ground if they leave the ground at all. And when they crash, they kind of like fall over. Nothing explodes. The person who was driving the plane just kind of like gets out and walks towards the camera, right? And I think we're coming out of that era now in AI, because some of the things that people are building right now might not have the shape that we would see in 20 or 30 years of like, oh yes, obviously that is what AI experiences are good at and we're destined for, and they are the ones that, you know, we've all chosen to make as a planet. And we're definitely, I thought we were more like really fully in that phase, but now obviously we are later. I will say something that you can check on your own websites is something that we found out when we started working on Ask Red Hat, which was that customers were already giving us AI-style queries. They were just putting them into our search interface. So our customers, you know, and everybody's customers, because they go on the internet, they are learning and they're getting new set expectations for behavior for your support experiences, because they're going to ChatGPT and Claude and, you know, even something like Google search. They're just seeing everything brought together in one place. And so what we saw in terms of the data is we had about 5% of our search queries, and I think this was back in January of this year. We looked at like a month or two of data, maybe more. were actually like queries, like when, how, where, and that's not really how people used search. It had changed, right? And then when we looked at sort of implied questions, like it didn't say how or where or when, but it was very much styled as if it was a AI style query that jumped to like 15, closer, I think, even to 20%. So this is something that you can look at in your own search experiences on your own websites to see if customers are starting to act in your search experience as if they expect there to be an AI response there. The other thing I will say about why you should invest in this now is that you can't give away your responsibility to the truth of who you are, what you do, how your stuff works. A lot of the third-party experiences, as brilliant and amazingly engineered as they are not as interested in answering questions correctly about your stuff as you are. Right? They want users to come away with a positive impression, but any one particular answer being wrong doesn't really frustrate them. And they certainly don't have like an area of expertise around your stories the way that you do. And to sort of defer that onto these third-party experiences, I think that's a choice. It's a choice that you could make if you don't have a lot of the building blocks that I'm talking about today that Red Hat had in place, search experience and engineering teams and things like that. If you have no building blocks, then maybe this isn't a choice for you. But if you have a lot of them, then I genuinely think that you should really help your customers by investing in some kind of AI experience that helps them early on. I do want to note that Ask Red Hat has not stood still, and since May, we have done a number of improvements. One is that we did like user-friendly features. We made our history interactive. Our copy button didn't originally include the citations, which we include every time we provide an answer. We want to make it easy for users to check our work. A slight digression on that, I think sometimes we see people say things like, AI, you always need to check AI. And I'm like, man, you always had to check Stack Overflow. Like, if you were copying and pasting code from somewhere you got on the internet without checking it, that was not great back then. That wasn't AI. So the checking of stuff has been sort of a permanent experience of any sort of skilled worker. And we want to make it easy to check our stuff. We added 7,000 pieces of content from our developers website, which wasn't there when we launched. We're in the process of adding Ask Red Hat to the trials experience, which is, you know, as I said earlier, we really want to go broad. We want to help users with everything. And this is the very first one where we can say to sales and marketing that we are helping their pre-sales users. And the reason we can do it is because trials users just need Ask Red Hat kind of the way it is. They need help with technology. We also added Ask Red Hat to our doc site. And most importantly, what I'm going to talk about next is that we integrated Ask Red Hat directly into our support case creation workflow. And we take the elements of the beginning of our support case and we transform them into a query, and we pass that query to Ask Red Hat, and then we have Ask Red Hat return a response to the user. And so this takes me into why I think you can invest now and like where you might want to put your time. And this goes back a little bit when John was speaking from IBM. I was laughing because he stole some of my thunder. He was talking about so many of the same things, and I'm choosing to believe that that's because we have independently arrived at the same conclusions. Because one of support's greatest strengths is its observability. It's a highly measured space, right? You have long-standing, durable measures that are in place. And when you introduce a change to the sort of ecosystem that your customers exist in when they come talk to you, you can see the impact of that change. And if it's a big change, you can see a big impact. And AI is expected to have a pretty big impact. I would say that the biggest choice you could make in this space is to really let the measurability of what you build shape what you choose to make. Because if you let the way you can measure things sort of provide you data back and aim to do something that has a measurable impact on support, it's this lifeline back to reality from the entire world of speculation of what AI could be that'll help you build an impactful quality experience that really helps people. And I really just think it's a fantastic place to start. I'm going to just take you through our support experience a little bit now. This is the first page of our support. And as you can see, there's kind of a lot going on here over the years. It's going to be going through a redesign. But in any case, you've entered in already you've selected your sort of product and version on the first page. Here we are on the second page. You say, how do I upgrade to RHEL 8? I'm not sure where to start. I need help upgrading. If as a user, you were to click on that see more options button, it would actually sort of scroll you through another half dozen or dozen search results. It comes from our AI re-ranking feature, which we applied for the ASP Support Portal Award with, I think, 2 years ago. And once you click see more options and you go to the bottom of the page and you press continue, you then get to this second page called resources. And I wanted to include the screenshot. To be very honest, there is a delay. There's always a delay with AI. And so this is what it looks like for several seconds. We have some pretty good time to first inference stats. We have very good uptime since launch. We haven't had a major outage since launch, which is pretty great. But I wanted to represent the experience accurately for users, and there's a reason for that. Once it finally resolves and starts putting data in here, you can see that it is on a very crowded page, and you have to click a button called Read More to actually see kind of what the answers are. But this is in fact like a good answer. You know, you can use the LEAP tool. There's a step-by-step guide. It provides you additional links because upgrading from RHEL 7 to RHEL 8 is actually very complex. And so you can't just say like, these are the 4 steps, you know, copy this bit of code. It's a necessarily complex task, right? And I will say that looking at all of that, even though it's on the second page, even though there's a delay, even though it's behind a button and in this crowded space, even there we are seeing, when we launched it in the space, we saw a 20% rise in engagement over what was already our baseline engagement level, which had been relatively steady. And in that space, in that second spot, it is doing half as much work when it comes to helping users try to self-solve as the entire page of AI re-ranked search results that users see first. So when you build that support case experience, whatever they see first is going to have a very high degree of self-solve attempts in it, right? So I'm going to go back for just a second, because if your answer is on this page already, you're going to leave, right? You're going to go check it out. You're going to, these are all links. It takes you out of the support case creation workflow. So what Ask Red Hat is doing here is that even after all of those users have already left the support case workflow, if they were resolved by an earlier piece of content, of everybody that's remaining, the performance is so strong in the second spot. And so I wanted to share that data with you today to help you maybe bring that back to your teams if you need some evidence to talk to your leadership about this kind of thing. So what's next? Well, we're still working on some stuff. We have a lot in progress. We are an active, dedicated team. Everyone seems to be talking about multi-agent right now. The classic example that I hear people tell me about for multi-agent is like a user booking a trip. Like if you're at kayak.com or something, you have an agent for car rental, and you have an agent that does hotel stuff, and you have an agent that does flight stuff, and they all call back to this like supervisor agent that knows about the trip details. And I have to admit, I don't think that metaphor really maps onto like large global companies and their support organizations, right? There isn't always going to be this sort of like central thing to map back to all the time, right? We live in a much broader world. There's going to be agents for support. There'll probably be agents for sales. There might be agents for product usage. And so we need to kind of think about how we can set up our AI, our customer and partner facing AI experiences to live in that broader world. And in that sense, our Ask Red Hat, our broad conversational search and how it's growing and aiming for that intelligent front door really lines us up to play right into that next evolution in the multi-agent space. In some ways, providing a unified AI experience of any kind to your users is a long tail problem. If you choose to embrace the fact that you want to build whole experiences that feel whole and where users can kind of like understandably have the boundaries, right? If you build an experience where it sort of claims that it will help users with your product And then it only helps users with one variant of your product or like the latest version of your product. They're going to feel like they hit a wall or a cul-de-sac at least, and they're going to have to put it in reverse and back out and start over. And that's never a good experience. So when you think about these AI experiences, it's very similar to large cohesive website experiences. You want users to always feel like they're progressing forwards towards the positive end state that they want to be in. Their problem is solved. Their system is set up. They feel great. Time for a sandwich. And so I will conclude by saying that I think this is a great time for support to lead the way in terms of customer experience, because support sees all of it. They see all of the varieties of customer behavior. They are experts in the long tail. I think I told a story last time I was here about how a couple of years after it was no longer supported, we got a call from a customer who asked us how to make a RHEL 5 machine beep. And, it was probably not in the support matrix anymore, but at the time, the team kind of looked into it and they asked why. And the customer said that the machine that they were working on was critically important, but no one had touched it in so long that it had been drywalled inside the wall of a conference room. And they wanted to make it make a sound so that they didn't open up all of the walls. They just wanted to open up one wall and find the machine. And that is the long tail illustrated, right? RHEL 4 kernel panic, RHEL 5 machine that needs to beep. I need to do this weird thing in this scenario with this situation. Support, we hear it all. And so in a world where AI and a unified experience for customers is a long tail problem, support's leadership can really take you into a place that sets you up for success in AI. And I will say, especially if you have invested in either a support portal or a customer portal, you have the in-house expertise you need where you're bringing stories together, you're bringing teams together. You can and already do present a unified experience to your customers, partners, and users. So please build on what you have. You probably have quite a lot. And that takes me to the end of my presentation. I left quite a lot of time for questions. I hope that is okay. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments from anybody as we go.
You have a question in the chat.
We do. So I'll read it out loud from Lara. How concerned are you about the possible shortcoming of the model agent reasoning capabilities in case the customer sends a complex query, and the possible liability if the customer damages their system while following the instructions provided by the agent? Whew, two very good questions. Thank you very much. The first one I will say is that one of the things that Ask Red Hat does do is that we do carry conversational context from query to query, so that if a customer kind of comes in with something that is complex but sort of comes out, trickles out over the course of a couple queries, Ask Red Hat is positioned pretty well to handle that. We have seen some customers pack way too much into one query. I recently did like a deep dive into some of our most insulting feedback, which was fun. And there wasn't as much of it as I expected, which was nice to see. Sometimes people just get mad and yell at the robot, and that's all right. But we had someone who had put a query into Ask Red Hat, and in it, he had listed 7 different bugs that he was dealing with. And Ask Red Hat didn't handle that. I mean, it gave him a generic response, actually. It said how you can handle some of these bugs is you could start here, but it was very, very high level, right? And the insulting feedback was something like, this experience is terrible. It gave me too generic of a response. And when I looked at it, I was like, well, I mean, you asked 7 different questions. Like a generic response is probably acceptable in this case. So it does happen, but I think this goes back a little bit to reasonable boundaries that like customers can understand. Right? If you go in and if you ask a question about 7 or 8 or 9 or many different problems all at the same time, it's hard to respond to any one of them individually. So I have low concern about it, because I think when humans do that, and they inevitably will, when they look at that response, probably their next move would be to change up their query a little bit, maybe break it into a couple parts before passing it into Ask Red Hat. The second question you were asked about liability if the customer damages their system. This is something we are very concerned with. One of the things about our customer portal and our product documentation is that they are fully supported. And so Ask Red Hat entering into the space where it can, any AI experience sort of introduces an element of unpredictability, right? So if a customer follows an instruction that is a bad instruction and sort of fully borks their system, that would be quite bad for us, yes. We have kind of talked with our team about it. We think that the likelihood is pretty low. We haven't really seen it show up yet, which is pretty good. We keep an eye out for it. We're testing for it. And like with any other AI experiences, we do say, and the power of disclaimers is somewhat limited, but we do say, please check our work, right? We are a colleague of yours. We're making a recommendation to you. You know, put some thought into it. It doesn't sort of execute the poor instruction for you. And we kind of hope that that human in the loop piece that naturally emerges from conversational search will kind of prevent disasters from occurring. But should a disaster occur, Red Hat support will be there to help you through it, which is another reason why we want to make sure it doesn't happen. Part of Ask Red Hat's remit is to try and reduce the load on our friends in support for routine queries, things that it's easy to self-solve. Basic questions, right? And so increasing the load on them. We work with them very closely. We hang out regularly. And if we were to sort of make their lives worse by giving bad instructions, we would hear it very quickly, I think. Lara, how did I do? Was that a good answer to your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, so thank you. Yes, very, very helpful. I would like to maybe ask you something more regarding the first part of the question. Sure. Your example was a customer sent a lot of kind of different bugs or different questions in the same query. Do you have situations, or have you observed situations in which a customer, you know, expresses a problem which is very complex? You know, I have my server having this and that condition, and, you know, I have configured this and that in this way, and I've integrated with that other thing, and now I'm getting this error. You know, like the question is very complex in itself. It's like it's one problem, but it's a very complex problem.
Absolutely, we do have that. And in fact, we knew that that was going to be coming our way before we built it, because we have forums on the customer portals. We have discussion boards, and we will see people post gigantic walls of text and huge error messages right into the discussion board. And so we knew that it was coming. And it's actually one of the reasons that our experience is, although we do have sort of a smaller docked experience over on our docs site, the main Ask Red Hat experience is a full screen experience, because we found that the complexity of the questions that we were getting, sometimes the length of the questions that we were getting, and the complexity and length of the responses, it was just really hard to understand if it was sort of like in like the width of a phone. And so we're doing kind of everything we can to like handle that. One of the interesting things about the Red Hat knowledge base is that sometimes for those very specific scenarios, there's actually a piece of content that just like actually solves that scenario. It is a place where we document unusual things and combinations of things. In the event that it is not something that we can simply say, oh yes, here is the answer to your extremely, you know, someone at Red Hat documented the answer to your question, I would have to go check. I'm not sure what it would do if we asked it an incredibly specific question with many, many variables in it that we didn't have the answer to. I think it would probably, the odds of it finding something related are good. But it doesn't do anything really specific like back out, ask clarifying questions. You know, I think a lot of those types of features where if you were talking to a human, that might be the next thing. They'd be like, oh, well, we don't have something like that. Let me see what else we have by removing this piece of your query and looking at something else. You know, a lot of those things are probably going to come as the technology landscape matures. Not quite there yet. And I don't think at Red Hat, I don't want to be the one to try and build something to solve that. That's another place where, again, we can trust that the world of AI is looking into this and building in it. Open source communities are playing with it. Our peers at Red Hat and IBM are working on this. And we can trust that a solution will come our way. while we focus on the things that only we can do, which is build this very broad conversational experience that primarily but not exclusively supports our customers, partners, and existing users.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other comments?
If anyone has another question, put it into the chat, please.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for having me. Al, as always, thanks for the invitation. And if you'd like to reach out later, more than welcome to.
Well, Christine, you didn't disappoint. It was a great presentation to really see how things went from start, not to finish, but to start to live in 12 weeks. Wow. That's kind of hard to imagine, to be honest.
It was pretty exciting times here at Red Hat, I have to say, and it was such a good story, Al, that I figured you wouldn't mind that Ask Red Hat. Some people don't think it's actually an agent. I figured you'd be okay with me just sort of pushing the boundaries just a little bit to tell this tale. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people need to hear about what is actually happening with AI today. I mean, this is not next year, 2 or 3 years down the road. This is now. And these are only, you know, as I think James Issue said, this is the worst AI is ever going to be, right? It's only going to get better from here on.
Yep.
And the miraculous accomplishments are going to start stacking up.
I think so.
Yeah. So one last call for questions. Put it into chat. Well, okay. So, and he's impressed me with how understandable he makes AI. I mean, he was the first one that talked to me, that mentioned to me a 500-word prompt. Up until that, I hadn't heard of such a thing or even imagined it. So he is going to talk about prompts and solving problems and then partnering KCS and AI. So David, why don't you get started? So David, we're not hearing any audio. We heard it a minute ago, but not now.
Well, that was weird. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'll start back over. Talk about problems. So I was tasked with an interesting, fun problem, which was around, well, how do getting started with AI for our whole tech support organization, and how do we move that forward? We had just released a brand new Gen AI product. It's called Mathworks Copilot that customers could use, and we could also use. But we want to make sure we're going to be effective. So that's going to be the topic here. How do you go from problems to prompts? All right, so let's get started here. So I want to talk a little bit about some prompting basics. I also want to impart some of the template prompts that might be effective in your organization in the things you do in your own support place, and talk about something called chain prompting. This alludes to something that I mentioned to Al about having extremely long prompts. All right, so one of the tasks I wanted to get started with was, like as I'm mentioning, how do you get new people? How do you train new people up? I could have just handed them a bunch of prompts, and that was one of the initial directions I started going on, which was, hey, do these to get yourself started on looking for information. But is that really going to be effective? I mean, sometimes you got to teach people to fish, right? You got to teach people how to prompt. Well, how do you teach someone to fish? Or how do you teach someone to prompt? A lot of times you have to start with what they already know. So what do people already know how to do? And how can you relate that to prompting? And that was really my kind of initial go at this, to change direction from providing just a bunch of things that people could potentially use to maybe finding a moment to help teach people on how to use it. So I think you have to now start considering, for many organizations, well, what are the key aspects of prompting? You have to kind of go back to that ground zero. And how can you make that effective once you have those key aspects? So for me, some of the key aspects, one of them is, well, maybe you just got to start by keeping things concise, right? And again, that's effective because, well, they're short. And if you know the point you're trying to make, that can be pretty effective. Well, what are some of the pieces? Well, you have to keep the outcome in mind. And what's the best way to get the outcome? Well, you start with a verb or an action. What is it you're after? I'm sure everyone here has had plenty of people come to their offices looking for help. And I'm sure you probably know who's effective and who's not when they walk into your office. You're either going to get the full story, maybe the questions at the end, or you have someone who comes in and says, here's what I'm after. And they start with that clear action. I think anyone can probably, maybe you like a good story, but I always like the good action if you come by, walking by. So that's something to keep in mind. And of course, context is important, right? That's an extremely important piece. But that's something I'll talk about, going through, which is how to use follow-up prompts or chain prompting. And that's something that's going to make folks very effective. Now, these three pieces might start looking familiar in a tech support world, because they all have really one thing in common, and it's a process that hopefully we teach all our engineers to be good at, and that's problem solving. All these pieces are there. You have to get to the root of the problem. You have to figure out, well, what is it I'm after here? What's the end goal? And how do I make sure I'm getting the right information to make myself effective? Right? So these are key pieces for problem solving. And that's honestly the best place to start. Look at the ways you teach your folks to problem solve and pull on those key pieces. How do you teach them to do that today? And that is going to start leading to making an effective prompt, or at least making folks effective at prompting. All right, so I'm going to share some template prompts with you. And I urge you guys, if you have any, throw your favorite prompts on the chat. I'd love to see them. But let's walk through a few. Because again, when you're problem solving, there's some key themes that you're trying to accomplish, right? So one of the first ones is, well, just regular tech support work, researching, right? And sometimes researching, particularly for a new product, I don't know how many releases many folks here have of their products, but you're probably releasing once, twice, I don't know, maybe even more per year. In doing that and keeping people up to date on the training, that can be kind of hard, particularly as you're getting a new question from a customer. So let's prompt. So let's find the latest changes in whatever your product there is, just throw it in the brackets, and then have the AI to summarize the key developments and provide links to whatever the release pages you guys have, whatever they're called. So again, that's an important task in problem solving, is researching. Another one, of course, is brainstorming. Well, let's ask AI. Let's generate ideas for whatever the product task is, whatever the workflow is. Let's see how well it does at doing that, right? That's an important piece. What about simplifying stuff? Sometimes you find so much information in tech support. You have stuff that tech support articles you've written, they're stuck in documentation. You may have things in some other marketing page, and all in your search force pulls all that back. How do I kind of just get to the key things here? Well, let's have it explained in simple terms. Again, these are great ways to kind of just have people get started for things. All right, what about learning? Well, sometimes you might know about the feature already, but now what? Well, let's break down the fundamentals of whatever the feature is into an easy to understand overview with examples. So if you already have some AI or implementing your organization, this is a way to, again, help people learn quickly, because again, when you're on support, you're not going to know all the features. And reading documentation, while it's great, that's what we do a lot of, let's make ourselves more effective in doing it. So this prompt is really effective at getting folks to kind of quickly learn about what the problem is at hand. What's this feature that I'm dealing with that I may not be familiar with? Or if I am, maybe it's been a while. What about making decisions? How about that? This has got a 2-for-1 here. let's compare the pros and cons of one feature versus another. I'm not sure about you guys, but I know development is always releasing brand new stuff. Maybe there's an old way of doing it. Maybe there's a new way of doing it. Well, what's the difference? Well, let's see if AI can return those parts for us. And that's a very effective way of doing that. Well, what if you're not even sure how to make that decision? Well, let's have it identify which decisions I should be making when deciding which feature to use between A and B. So this gets you to those considerations. And again, if you have good doc and good articles and things you've already put up there, let's pull all the information back cleanly for your support engineers. So these are kind of easy ways to kind of really get folks in there. Now, this is where things get fun, right? Because I just threw a bunch of things, and you can order these in the way that you want to. Do I need to first research? Do I need to get to know something better? Am I trying to learn? Am I at a point where I want to make a decision? Again, there's all key pieces of problem solving. So let's get into the chain prompting. Now, if you haven't heard about this, what is chain prompting or follow-up prompting? It has different terms. A nice way to kind of think about this is, again, it's a way to break down, complex tasks. And again, you can make them small, and you can now start interconnecting those prompts, right? And now you can just prompt one, and it can build onto the next one. And that's how you can really get into a pretty accurate solution. Now, your most effective problem solvers probably do this today, right? They might go into someone's office and start having a conversation. And they know how to start asking questions, breaking the problem down a little further, getting to those real key pieces. And that's how you can probably tell in your teams who's really good at this and who's not, right? But they're the ones who are good at already problem solving. Those are the ones you want to help out others in doing this. All right, so now let's get to some tips. So, and as most folks are already aware, GenAI does lack awareness. It doesn't know what things that might be installed. It doesn't know a lot of stuff about your work environment. So you definitely want, again, as part of your teaching of your support engineers, to really keep that in mind and make them aware of it. Another one that I've noticed for many different AI implementations, be it Google, be it Claude, be it, you name it, Perplexity, there's so many out there. You do want to, after you've asked one question, you want to clear that chat history, whatever that looks like for you in your organization's setup. Because if you don't, and you ask it, and you go into a new topic, that will definitely confuse it. At least I've noticed for a lot of different implementations by many different companies. And again, the third piece, and I think I heard Christine mention this, talk about stealing thunder. Yeah, you of course want to verify results, but guess what? You know the word I'm going to say. This is problem solving. You always verify your results. There's nothing new here. I think sometimes what can happen too often is engineers look at this well-polished, looks like a very well-defined answer that just got returned, and boy, how can you not trust that? But like anything else, you always have to verify your results before you send anything out. And that can be tricky because, again, it looks so well polished that you might just want to get away with it. Just yeah, we're good. We're on our way. But again, good problem solving is the way to go to this. All right. So now there's going to be a challenge here for your experienced team members as you go along. And I know if I had Uncle Sam with a beer in his hand, he would be telling me right now, every great prompt leverages great problem solving. I know he would. I know that's for a fact. So this is something to keep in mind, to really pull in those experienced team members. You probably know who those are. Really help those others get better at problem solving, because that will make them a better prompter. So again, teach others by how to problem solve. Create and share prompts. The ones I just kind of gave you, the template ones, those are great starter dough for anyone to get started into this. But definitely encourage, again, KCS through all of this. Because if you find those articles and you're prompting it and it's not giving the right return, we are at the heart of that, right? We are the ones that have to go in and update those pieces. So that's what's going to be very, very important. It's so important, in fact, for us that many of our all our articles that we publish externally to our customers, it's part of our MATLAB Copilot implementation for customers. So not only is it looking at documentation, all the little pieces, it's looking at the stuff we write. And I hope that I encourage the rest of you as you go through your own implementations for that to be the case, because that puts us now at a higher leverage point, right? The better we prompt, the better we solve problems, the better we should be capturing and updating content. So those are going to be very important pieces as we move along into this. AI is simply an amplifier or a magnifier, is what I usually like to call it. Whatever is good is going to become great. Whatever is not so good, well, you can probably fill in the blank. So those are going to be important pieces as you continue to go along. So the focus is definitely going to have to be not just on, on just KCS as a process, but how do you fit that now while you're prompting? How do you fit that as you're going through your Gen AI implementations? And that really goes back to people. It's going to make it, talk about putting a spotlight, a magnifying glass. The better problem solvers you have, the better content you have, the better prompters you're going to have. All these three pieces are going to work together. And that's been our journey so far as we've continued down this path. And again, my piece hopefully is helpful in terms of how to train people, but more importantly, how to get people to become great problem solvers and great fishers, I guess. All right. This was going to be, like I said, I was right at the end here, and I really wanted to be nice and quick for many of you, but I'm open to questions, to things around how we've gone about with some of these training pieces and anything related to prompts at all. I'll gladly answer any and all questions.
Yeah, Dave, James asked you a quick question for you.
Yeah, James, sure.
How do you get people out of their bad habits? And the bad habits I'm talking about are using prompts as searches, such as, and I'll tell them myself, I've been using Copilot in Outlook, and I keep asking it questions or keep telling it, please find me an email with ABCD. And I finally figured out that I wasn't getting very good results until I said, what is ABCD? And then it found the information I was looking for. So how do you get old people like me to quit the bad habits and prompt correctly?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think for me, it's been a kind of also a discovery just in that, where I've had to step back and I've put myself in a position, well, at least when I step back in my mind, like if I was going to ask a person, what's the best approach for me to do that? And James, this is a great question. If I went to someone and said, hey, can you tell me what about AB? They'd be like, well, can you give me some context? Can you tell me what's going on? What are these pieces? And it was when I started kind of discovering what you just discovered, James, is when I became a much better prompter. It's when I started saying, look, I'm most effective when, and I answer the question, when I know exactly what I need to ask someone. So I think and this is hard because it isn't just, like I said, kind of being an old timer like myself as well. We've also been ingrained with some habits around how search engines work with just a few words and, hey, go do this, go do that. So a lot of those pieces is a relearning opportunity. So for me, it was all around problem solving. Once I kind of figured that out, I'm like, I've gone away from my problem solving skills is what's happened. Even as a manager, I've gone too comfortable and just go do this, go do that. And that's not a good effective way. Does that help, James?
The counter argument to that is where I struggle. I don't like to type. I've been typing on this keyboard for I don't know how long, but I don't like to type. And so the old search worked great for me, 1 or 2 words, and I was done. But now if you try the same thing, it just simply doesn't give you the results you're after. So you really have to be a little more verbose. And to your point, ask it what you really want it, but you got to give enough information so it understands what you really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been a shift in my mind as well of how I do prompting. I've treated it much more, as hard as it is, because again, it's not a real person on the other side, but I've tried to treat it just like that as a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm, everyone is here is using Microsoft Teams. If I'm on Teams and, James, if I need to ask you a question, the 1-2 words isn't going to work. I need to kind of be very clear on what I would be after. So I've started my mind to early on kind of just to make that switch. And that was something when I was going through and just figuring out how do I teach all this to prompt? I had to look at my own habits and then kind of figure that part out.
No, absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, great question, James.
Okay, since no one else spoke up, do you have I know you talked a little bit about it in your presentation, and I saw some early on, some like formulas. Your prompt must include these 4 or 5 things. Did you have
Yep.
something that you showed earlier? And do you have like a one screen shot? There's like 5 different things. Okay.
Yep. So these are the kind of key things I kept in mind. Yeah, screenshot away if you want. Yeah, these are ones I kept in mind. Kind of breaking things down a little bit. And again, this is kind of going back to your problem-solving roots a little bit. What are those key things that I need to be effective if I was going to ask anyone, even if I was going to ask a customer, like if I was going to ask a customer, right, how would I go about asking them? I wouldn't go on flowing on forever. I would only do a few words. So a lot of those habits that have helped our engineers create are a lot of good ones that you can probably re-leverage for doing stuff like this, right? So these are the ones that's how I would, in many ways, like I said, it's kind of a reuse of what's really good, right? How do you contact customers, and what kind of language do you use? A lot of that stuff you can probably reuse. If you have problem-solving trainings that you already do with your folks, you can pull pieces out of there because that's really going to be at the heart of this for sure. Is this slide you were talking about, James, or was it a different one?
Yeah, I think that was it. I was thinking too, early on in Gen AI, I received a copy of something called the Craft framework. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. C
Yes.
was context, to provide the background information or context for the prompt. R was role, to find the role or perspective from which the response should be generated, like you are the professional in this area. A was action, specify the action or task you want the model to perform. F is format, indicate the desired format, like put it in a table or bullet points or paragraph or whatever. And then the T in the craft was a target audience, identify the audience for the response. Like present this as if you're talking to a 4-year-old, for instance.
Yeah, and that also works very, very well. The hard piece in many ways, I've dumbed that down to some extent
Right.
here, but you're right, James. You're absolutely correct. There are plenty of, and I encourage people, if you have different models that you've seen for prompts, share them here. I think the craft one is a great one. And what I've done here is simplified it down even further, but trying to craft how to craft one with all those pieces at once and getting those long prompts. I have some very long prompts I use, but getting there is not easy. And that's why I suggest that chain prompting or that follow-up prompting, as I call it here. There's a couple different terms you're using, and that usually you can get to those pieces and start formulating them a little bit, right? Like you said, you get to your C, you get to your R, and you can now start going having that back and forth. And then once you come to a point where you think you've got it, you're like, okay, now explain that to me as if I was, like you said, 4 years old, or I didn't know about this topic. How would you go about doing that? And those are going to be the ways that kind of really help people through, is how to get through those basics. And really, the craft one for me is just another kind of problem-solving model. And those are the kind of things I would continue to leverage in this area.
Agreed. And the best thing to your point is the fact that it's iterative. You can ask a question, and if it doesn't give you what you're looking for, you can say, well, how about this, or how about that, or what about this? And your follow-up questions can be very short because it does stay in context and it actually understands those follow-up questions.
Correct. Because the craft model and many others are just about that. They want you to kind of create that whole context at once. Can be very, very good. If you love typing those long 100-word prompts or longer, it's excellent. You can definitely do that one shot. Save that prompt for next time. Share it. That's great. But I find, at least in my organization, where we have over 100 different products, and I'm sure many people have lots of products they have to support, having that kind of skill to do that, it's very difficult to kind of ramp there and get there. But if I can teach people, hey, just keep these pieces in mind as you're going through, that's going to be a more effective approach as you start getting through it.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, James. Great.
Hey, Dave, why don't we move on to the second part of your presentation?
Well, my second part was going to be I started to kind of play around with it, but I can talk through it. And I mentioned there at the end, and that was around the KCS aspects of it. I had a couple of different ideas, but I have my AI Copilot. I could kind of show some examples, but I think it's going to be easier just to, because I'm not sure how useful it's going to be. But I think I'll mention this part, which I did mention at the end, which is around the what we're trying to do now with KCS. There's a growing need, as AI continues to, I'm guessing for everyone, chomp away at a lot of your easy questions that your support organization used to get, to kind of start rethinking, well, where is the value that you're not providing? And I think a lot of that for us, for me, it lies in not just how we prompt, but now it lies, what do you do with that information that you now have found? And I think now this puts a greater spotlight more than ever on KCS. I'm sure many people have teams of, KCS teams that going about. I think those teams are only going to continue to grow. And that's something that I know I'm focused on and looking into to kind of how I'll continue to do that. Because that's going to be a growing need. AI, like I said, AI is only going to magnify both the things that are great, it's going to be, that you already have, and the things that are not so great. But I think that's going to be the kind of the growing trend going forward for many support organizations, is you have to start figuring out your value. The game continues to change, and for me, it's always fun to kind of see that. We've gone through lots of these iterations where the games have changed, and now I think it continues to do so. And for me, that looks, I think everyone needs to look at their own support organization and figuring out that value add. And AI can now, like I said, everyone knows here, well, it can only do, and I think Christine said it best, with your AI implementations will know your products the best. So make them the best. And one great way the support can do that is through KCS. And I hope everyone has adopted a KCS framework on their teams. But I'd love to hear what everyone else is doing here as well. But I know that's our approach, and our growing approach, if you will, as we continue moving in that direction, is to do just that. So I'm willing to have a conversation around that. I started to kind of feel around with some slides. I'm like, I'm not sure if I actually have enough, but I can certainly kind of talk to it in terms of what we wanted to kind of go off and do. And I'd love to hear what others are trying to do. But that's the direction we're going in terms of where KCS can fit into the AI world. It has to be part of that part.
Okay, well, we welcome comments, questions. Anybody want to follow up?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that one, of course. So, as I said in my presentation, if if you're reading the paper every day, how 80% of new AI implementations fail, and what they don't tell you is they fail because they're not data ready, and they have no good content, and the content's not ready, and they have nothing usable, no material to back it up. So AI is crap in is crap out, and so garbage in, garbage out, however you want to say it. So without a really solid KCS program backing you up and providing solid content in standard formats that's written in a way that addresses the customer's issues, you're going to struggle. You're absolutely going to struggle. Now, many people have already written documentation that sort of aligns with the way AI is working today. But I really think it's going to be an art form that it's going to develop over time. But right now, we know bad data is going to give us bad responses, and it's just not going to work very well. And that's why a lot of these new applications fail. My 2 cents.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And in going to something you just mentioned, I know that's something that many organizations is looking at is different standards for doc to make it easier. Or not just talk about any content, to make it easier for doc to be consumed, not just by your own Gen AI implementation, but those that already exist out there. And I believe it's called an LLM.txt file. So anyone can start looking up at that piece. I think Christopher Staples from Mathworks is on there. Christopher, am I correct in kind of calling that a standard at this point?
It is definitely a standard. It's been suggested. I think a lot of people are using it. It's not, it's not been around a long time, but it's been accepted. Yeah, I would say it's a standard. It's a good way to say it. We've implemented it in some areas of our site so far. And we're working on expanding that to more areas and also running tests at the same time to see the effect of it.
Yeah, they call it. I mentioned this a little bit in my presentation. Where we used to do search was what search engine optimized, and now they call it AI engine optimized. And the way the data is prepared, your content is prepared, so that Google and ChatGPT and everything else can accurately provide an answer. Otherwise, it's going to be garbage out there. It's just not going to meet the customer's needs. And as I said, I don't care where the customer gets help from, as long as they get the right help and it moves them along and keeps them engaged with our products. So it's our responsibility to make sure these other search engines also have the right material, the right content.
Internally, we've been using generative AI engine optimized. GEO is a little bit easier to say than AIEO, but it sounds more melodical to say it your way.
Yep, exactly. And all the work is going to continue to change, as I mentioned as well. And that's going to be growing around, at least for KCS. There's work that, AI can absolutely start leveraging to do that many KCS people probably struggle to do. For example, how do you know if an article is out of date? Are you how much time do you spend cross-checking between your documentation, which was releasing quickly, and your articles, which may not be updated as quickly? And that's where AI can make this work much, much easier. But that's where a lot of effort, like I said, we have to start looking at our KCS folks, making those lives easier for people to update, create content in all levels.
Okay, last chance for comments or questions. I think we've worn them out.
That's all right.
Well, Dave, thank you very much. Hopefully that rounds things out and help people to conceptualize how they can dig into this and what to do and what not to do. I think all of our presenters today have really helped to shed some light on this very interesting topic that is moving like a rocket through our industry. And as the head of ASP, I will say, if you don't get on board, you're going to be run out of this business very quickly. This is not an option. This is not just another technical fad that's going to go away shortly. This one is here to stay, and it's gathering steam, and this is the worst it's ever going to be. So there's going to be a whole lot more of it coming up, and you need to be part of that movement. So I'd like to thank, first of all, my friends at TSIA, Paul Esch and Brittany. They've been helpful for quite a while, and they've helped us with past conferences as well. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Search Unify, and their parent company, Grazidi, for supporting us. I'd like to thank James Askew from NetApp, John Goodson from IBM, Tanya from Search Unify, Christine from Red Hat, and David Cabral from Mathworks. And I hope that more of you will get involved in our ASP Best Support websites in this coming year. We'll try to get any changes out by January. We don't change the scoring radically from year to year. We try to make changes incremental, but they'll be published on our website for everyone and anyone to see. You don't have to be a member to look at them. You don't have to be a member to join the competition or to get your website looked at. The prices can be very nominal to get your website judged by 5 independent judges, many of whom you got to hear from yesterday and today. And in fact, even James is Not sure if everybody today is a website judge, but many of them anyway. And we heard from 4 different judges yesterday. And I hope that you'll provide feedback on how we can make these events better. So with that, I will say thank you very much and bye for now. Oh, we're ended.
Thanks all. Take care, Al.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, I'm Tanya, Product Manager at Searchify, where our vision is to empower support organizations with truly intelligent, autonomous AI that helps transform support into a faster, smarter, and a continuously learning ecosystem. Today, we'll see how autonomous AI is transforming support, moving past chatbots into an ecosystem of AI agents that can resolve, learn, audit, freeing up your team's bandwidth to focus on more complex issues. Having said that, we've seen how autonomous AI is transforming support, yet there is a very crucial data point highlighted by TSIA, which says that despite numerous investments into support, about 61% of the cases handled by your support agents are still how to minor configuration or install issues, which says that your support agents are still focused and stuck in the loop of solving repetitive cases and are not being able to focus on higher complex issues, which might be affecting your CSAT score. So here is an opportunity to leverage AI, where AI can take over by resolving these repetitive cases, and your agents can actually focus on more complex and value-driven issues. We at Searchify realized this issue of repetitive cases, and we have evolved through 3 steps to get to a solution for this. The first step being of find with our enterprise search, which brings in numerous content repositories into one place. Firstly, for your customers to self-serve on their own, and your support agents to be able to find content from different locations, different tools, in just one place to be able to resolve those cases quickly and efficiently. The second step is of assist with our co-pilots. So our co-pilots have the previous conversation histories, what steps were taken, what did work, what did not work, and what should be the next step to resolve the cases. So your agents can take aid of these co-pilots in resolving those cases more quickly. And at present, we are at the third step, which is automating most of the tasks with Agentic AI. So the AI agents are not just helping, but they are offloading certain tasks of your support agents by resolving those repetitive cases on their own, so that your support team has more bandwidth to focus on complex issues. At the core of Searchify is the foundation layer, a unified approach to integrating content from all your repositories. This ensures seamless access to the most relevant content while maintaining strict compliance and security. Then we leverage Searchify Frag, which intelligently pulls information from across your entire system, re-ranking results to ensure only the most relevant and accurate content is retrieved. This is critical for ensuring that the AI agents don't return irrelevant or incomplete answers, avoiding the risk of hallucinations. To ensure accuracy and reliability, SCORE comes into play. The SCORE framework controls the final output by evaluating every response based on search relevancy, contextual accuracy, and compliance. It ensures that when the system returns results, it's not just pulling any answer, but the 1 or 2 most relevant answers to solve the case, minimizing errors and ensuring precision. Right now on your screens, you can see our AI agents and the end-to-end workflow that is helping automate the support operations. The first agent that we can see is the AI support agent, which is basically the first contact for your end users. So if any of your customers have a query that needs to be resolved, it could be like a L1 sort of a query, or a configuration issue or an install issue, that can be inputted here. And once that is done, The AI case classification agent is able to understand whether this is a new or a known query, which means if there is a solution to it, it is a self-service request, and that query gets resolved right there by the AI support agent. If not, if the knowledge is not present, it needs more debugging or more troubleshooting. It can then move into the workflow to the different agents that we have further ahead. While the conversation of the end user is happening with the AI support agent, the AI escalation manager is always monitoring this conversation to be able to identify the risk of escalation. So if the AI escalation manager understands that there is a loop stuck in self-service and the customer is getting frustrated, the AI escalation manager can then escalate it to a human agent. When the AI case classification agent has identified a more complex problem or a problem that is looking like a service request or a troubleshooting issue, it is handed over to the AI competency agent, which is the L2 agent that helps resolve more complex issues. And at this point, the case has reached case CRM. If the case is resolved by the AI competency agent, the workflow ends there. Your L1 queries are handled. Your L2 type of cases are also handled by this agentic solution. If not, the case gets handed over to a human agent, and we do not want to leave the human agent high and dry. So we have another agent helping like your human agent. So it is like a co-pilot, the AI agent partner, which helps your agents understanding what has happened so far and what should be the next steps to resolve the case, so that the customer is not left waiting, which will elevate the chances of customer dissatisfaction even more. Right after the cases are handled and closed, we understand that it is a practice in most of these support organizations to do an audit of how well the cases were handled. And it is a manual process, which is quite draining. Mostly a sample of cases are audited. But the AI case quality auditor helps you audit each and every case. So it automatically runs a score on 10 different parameters to assess whether the case was handled in the right manner or not. And this in turn presents opportunities for coaching your agents in the areas where the score is quite low. And here we do not want to leave this knowledge not captured, and we want to capture the learnings from this entire experience. And here is where the AI knowledge agent comes into picture. The AI knowledge agent, once the case is closed, is able to identify whether this is a new knowledge creation opportunity or previously created articles need to be revised. So the AI knowledge agent will identify those opportunities, create new knowledge, or revise existing knowledge based on whatever has been assessed, so that this knowledge is again fed back to the AI support agent to be able to resolve these queries in future on its own. Without any further ado, I would like to showcase some of these agents in a live demo. So starting off with the first line of defense, which is the AI support agent. It can be placed on any of your portals. It could be the support portal or your docs portal. And right here, your end users, your customers could come in and look for answers. This AI support agent is designed to handle all the L1 kind of queries, and it basically skims through all your content that has been tied up to it, looks for information in that content and gets back with a precise and accurate answer. So let's try it out for ourselves. I've given an input that says how to set up SSO. Now, once I enter this query, the AI support agent thinks for a few seconds, and then it provides an answers. It gives the citations, like these are the sources from where it has derived this answer. And right here, you can see answer that has come up, well formatted, well structured, that your end users can consume easily, follow these steps, and get their SSO set up. And this AI support agent also is supported for different languages. So if your end users are comfortable using any other language other than English that can also be supported by the AI support agent. I'm going to ask another query which says that I am adding in my login credentials, which are correct, but I am still not able to log in. Let's see how it is going to debug this sort of a query. So again, it is thinking for a few seconds, going through the process. It has brought back an answer again with the citations, and it is saying that these could be potential reasons why you're not able to log in. So it has given us a few reasons to troubleshoot for the end users. And after this, if the end user is still not able to log in, and if they have an error message that is showing up, so the AI support agent also supports multimodality. So they can just go ahead, upload their error message, mention the issue that they're facing. So I'm just going to write, in this image, there is an error that I am facing. So once I input this query, the image goes in. My query has been sent to the AI support agent. And after the image has been processed, it assesses the error that has come up, and it is going to suggest me what should be done next. So right now it says that there is an unauthorized access kind of error that has come up, and you should be contacting your admin to have this access reinstated. So it has understood that this request needs a service type of treatment, and it cannot be solved by self-service. So right here it has informed the end user what should be the next step, and I can probably ask the AI support agent itself to create a case for me from here. Can you create a case related to this for me? So, pertaining to mention that it also remembers the conversation, what has been happening back and forth, and basis that it keeps the context intact and the conversation flow becomes easy. So right here, it has helped us create a case. It has given us the case ID, case number, the subject has been auto-populated, and the priority and the status has been set. And once I click on this link, I'll be navigated to the case that has been created in the CRM. While we're talking about the cases, if the person who has logged in to basically ask their queries, if they have already a backlog of cases present, they can view all their existing issues here. They can ask for updates on those issues right from here, like what is the current status, what has been the latest advancement on that case. All can be asked right from this one screen. And of course, there's an option of speech to text. So you really don't need to type everything and ask. Of course, there's an option to record and send your query to the AI support agent. So as I was explaining the workflow, the AI support agent is working along with the AI classification agent and AI escalation manager. So here the query was classified as self-service. So it attempted to answer and troubleshoot. And once the AI escalation manager realized and the AI classification agent classified it as a self request, because this error is something that can only be resolved by the admin of that account, it escalates and says that this needs to be handled by an administrator, and further case was created by the AI support agent. And once the case is created, of course, it goes into the CRM. And one way to handle the case is with the AI competency agent that can troubleshoot, provide a solution, or else the case could get transferred to a human agent who would then work on this case, provide a resolution to the customer, and of course, the resolution would be documented on this case. Once all of that is done, we move ahead to the flow wherein our other agents will start to trigger. Now, this is a case which I am going to close. And on case closure, 2 of our agents start to trigger, which is the AI knowledge agent. Now, the AI knowledge agent is assessing whether it is a creation opportunity or a revision opportunity. And basis all these qualification parameters, it has found out that there is a need to create a new article, and it scans through all your knowledge base articles and finds out no article. So it is recommending to create a new article. After the recommendation is sorted, it selects a template, generates content in that template, and also runs a content health check basis 6 or 7 parameters. Of course, these can be customized by our customers if they would like the content to be judged upon different parameters. That is doable. And then the article is pushed as a draft. A reviewer is assigned again, which is configurable, and a notification is sent to that reviewer so that they can review the content quickly and push it back into the system to be leveraged by the self-service channels. And here is the article that was created. It has a title, it has an ID, a category assigned to it. The status currently is draft. The article can be reviewed from here. If the agent would like, they can also go ahead, edit this article, or link it to case if linking of drafts is allowed in the org. At the same time, the case quality auditor is also invoked, as I mentioned earlier. The case quality auditor is basically helping audit all the cases that get closed. We understand that currently only a sample of cases are reviewed in every org because it is practically not possible to review each and every case. So the case quality auditor automatically runs on 10 different parameters, which include the accuracy of the resolution provided, what was the quality of the agent's response, how well the agent understood the issue, how good was the technical analysis, was the SLA met for the first response or the resolution. So these are the 10 parameters that are provided by default. And of course, the customers can go ahead and tell us their custom parameters or introduce those custom parameters so that the case QA can be run on those parameters as well. So it gives you a summary of what is the total quality score on this case, how well the case was handled, and what is the score and the justification of that score adjacent to every parameter that can be seen on the screen. So this is how the end-to-end workflow works for the support ops. And of course, this cannot be seen on every case. And that is why we have like extensive analytics for all the support agents that we have. And for the AI support agents, of course, we showcase the total conversations that have happened, how many were deflected, how many were handed over to live agents, and how many conversations were unsuccessful. What has been the CSAT score, and here all the conversation details can be seen, what has happened in those conversations and what was the status of it. And similarly, for the escalation manager, there are reports that tell us the aging of the case and what was the initial escalated score that was predicted and what is the current sentiment. So what is the current escalation score for the cases? If we go to the AI case or quality auditor, there are also extensive reports that tell us what the performance was for every case that was audited. Here I'm applying like a filter for which date range I would like to basically check these scores. Of course, that you can select your custom range or the default range that has been provided here. So it tells you different kinds of scores, what is the average case quality score and the scores per parameter, what is the average score per parameter. And of course, then it tells you the details of every case. Like for this case, what was the title, what was the account name, and the quality score that was assessed by the case quality auditor. And then, of course, the action can be taken on it. Feedback can be sent to the agent to work upon so that this is utilized as an opportunity to improve in the further case handling. Moving to the analytics of AI knowledge agent, of course, there is a visualization graph that tells us what is the kind of coverage that we have against the number of cases that are coming. So We have the clusters of cases, and over that we show the overlap of articles that are possible resolutions. And wherever there is no coverage, it means those cases are basically knowledge creation opportunities. Then there are also analytics that showcase your knowledge base evolution, basically what is the current strength of your knowledge base, how many articles have been published, revised, archived, where all is this knowledge basically being used, and like what is your new versus known analysis that can also be seen from here. There are many reports that help you understand the maturity of your knowledge base and how these agents are basically helping you elevate the knowledge base and the outcome that the robust knowledge is going to create in solving the L1 cases and helping out your support agents to quickly link knowledge and solve the cases. So this is the workflow end to end that will definitely help the support ops to become more efficient. Thank you. We have also seen some early success with the Searchify solution, wherein our customer Excella has seen a remarkable 99.7% support cost savings per user interaction. Also, Automation Anywhere is able to enrich their knowledge base with this continuously evolving and improving ecosystem, wherein their increase in article count has been by 180%, and increase in published article is about 96%, and the link rate has also increased by 115%, showcasing that how the agents are using the knowledge that has been captured in the process of resolving the cases. Thank you for having Searchify as a speaker, and congratulations to all the award winners.